I can see why. I mean, it's obvious. Like, this was always a cope from the Trump administration, but it's a cope. It's a successful cope because it's a good point, which is that there are going to be things that get released that are going to send people down a million different rabbit holes needlessly, because it was evidence that was collected and then brought to the DOJ's Epstein files, quote unquote, and was dismissed.
People are saying the redactions have disappeared. Is this the DOJ trying to just catch up with this is the whole thing, everything that they do to make themselves look less guilty, or try to fix previous mistakes, previous attempts to, hide stuff. It just makes them look more and more guilty.
And you don't necessarily see them showing the work as to how they dismissed this, and the other thing. So yeah, I think it's possible that's the case here.
And I also think
I think
it would have some MCC jail markings, I would think, like mail that a prisoner.
Thespio says their only tool is a shovel, and they're already in a hole. They are digging that hole deeper, Thespio.
Out is going to get read and marked, unless he has his attorneys send
right.
it.
They also did a handwriting analysis, though. I mean, I think we need to ultimately.
There has been a handwriting
as well, because that is really telling. The fact it's handwritten.
The FBI
clues.
Right.
You have a bunch of writings of Jeffrey Epstein. Match up the letters. I mean, there's specific tells and there's forensic analysis you can do to easily at least debunk it. To say nothing of like confirm it, because there are some weird things here. I do think it's a funny Sophie's choice for like conspiracy theorists, where the postcard implicates Epstein killing himself, which obviously a lot of people say, well, he didn't for sure. They believe 100% he didn't. But then on the other hand, you have the same postcard with this, very explicit implicating of Trump. Do you believe the postcard? Do you not? Do you insist that he was killed, or do you think, it's definitely an interesting, it's an interesting one. I don't know what to make of it. I think the hardest part about it is it was sent so quickly after his death. I think that's going to fuel theories for years. I mean, because you could technically have it dated afterwards, like it's just within the window of being maybe possible. Although, like I said,
So the plausibility would be the idea that Epstein wrote the letter, he put it in whatever you put it in, or however you send like a letter out of jail, right? And it didn't get postmarked until 3 days later. Is that what CoffeeZilla is saying? It's close to it's within 3 days of his death. So
there's a lot of I guess problems with the theory as well.
Yeah, it was September 19th they asked for this handwriting analysis, but I don't think we found yet the results of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's public yet. Which they need to ultimately publish that, regardless of what it says. Nobody's at this point, and this is part of the problem with how they've rolled it out. There's such low trust on this issue. They've shot all their credibility. It's gone. Nobody will believe anything.
Look, there's low trust with the government in general around Epstein. There's low trust, with the government and with law enforcement when it regards the Epstein class, people that are rich, wealthy, powerful, and connected. And then there's, obviously a specific lack of trust in the Trump administration, and even more specific lack of trust, even some of the diehard MAGA people, right, are saying that they don't trust Trump on the Epstein files, right? And that's got to be a very hard circle to square for somebody that has built their image of Donald Trump as being some kind of force against the the pedophilia of the elites, right? And now you find that when he has the chance to release everything, go transparent, as he claimed he would, as Bongino and Patel claimed they would, it's even JD Vance said they would in his appearance on Theo Von. He's actually now getting in the way of the public, having the information that, especially conspiracy-minded QAnon adjacent Trump supporters would, believe. Yeah, this has got to be a a wild thing. The only way I can imagine them holding on is this really strange sort of niche perspective that I have heard is out there about Trump. And it's this, that the reason that he's in all these pictures with Epstein, the reason that he seems to be best friends with Epstein, is that Trump is somehow like on a mission to expose Epstein, to expose the elite pedophile cabal. And he has, I don't know what, have to pretend to be one of them, right? So this is the white hat pedophile theory. And Trump recently put on a white cowboy hat. Coincidence? I don't know. Probably is a coincidence. I'm off the Trump bus as watcher. Yeah, I think even Asmongold's off. Asmongold's not rocking with Trump anymore.
If you don't release it. So it's like when this handwriting analysis comes, like you say you sent it in, if you do not have those records, it's going to be a disaster because people are just going to say, well, it would have proved X or Y or whatever you want to believe.
And now as I'm Googling, I'm seeing like media is like running with this. Like people.com's headline is Jeffrey Epstein wrote apparent note to Larry Nassar. It's like, But you're right. Like if you're this sloppy about how you're releasing it, like, and you're just leaving it up to the public, it's going to get, not that the public is less trustworthy necessarily than these goons.
Well, but it's just
Ryan,
that you could collect any number of random scraps, as you do when you're investigating things. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but this definitely feels like the thing that they were kind of trying to be like, we do not want this out. This is so bad. I mean, there definitely could be more. I'm not saying there isn't, but this
how about
feels like
this?
the first thing that makes sense. Yeah, this is another one for sure. U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, saying that Trump was on more flight records than previously reported, specifically mentioning that, he was on flights where some of the people present, well, one, it was during a time period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. And then on the second to last sentence, on the two other flights, two of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. That's also really bad. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
Yeah, that is bad. The Department of Justice saying Trump flew on the plane more than they thought, and crucially, at the moment where they're, investigating Maxwell for trafficking, and eventually convicting her of it.
And chat, this is the main thing I focused on last night because it's the, of all of Tranche 8, it was the most, or the first interesting document to kind of be surfaced, right? And this is what blows the lid on the whole co-conspirators thing. Remember, Kash Patel has said things that seemingly contradict this, right? That if this is true, that there were 10 co-conspirators, that means that Kash Patel lied under oath.
And okay, who are these two witnesses? What would they say about Trump? That they're not saying that anything happened on that flight. They're just saying he was there, but there were victims on the plane. And also it goes to this, like, I think it so far clears the bar for what people want our public officials to be doing. Like, even if you did not assault these two girls while you're on this plane, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing so many times on this plane called the Lolita Express at a time when these later to be convicted sex traffickers are trafficking women around? And that two of them...
You know what? You could ask, what are you doing about a lot of moments in Trump's life that have become public, right? There's too much smoke at this point, I would say, for there not to be fire. This is what they found in the FBI's unlisted zip file. So, Thespio, I think you're talking about Tranche 8, if I'm not mistaken. Right, this is from Tranche 8, right? So Tranche 8 was a folder that was on the FBI website, right, that they put up in compliance with the Epstein Transparency Act. And, what if you looked on the website, you could see folder 1, folder 2, folder 3, folder 4, all the way to 7, right? There were 7 folders. And, each of these, if you looked at the URL, it would say blah, 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 DOJ, FBI.gov // this /that. And then the last slash was folder 1 slash folder 2 slash folder 3. So somebody, went up into their URL and they erased the folder _7 or they erased the 7, they replaced it with an 8. And when they hit return, this came up. What that means is that they've got fucking, I don't want to say they're boomers, but this is a very boomer thing to do. That they have uploaded files to the website that were in no way password protected, and thought that because the files weren't indexed, because there was not a hyperlink on the site that pointed to them, that's okay. We can leave that there for now. If we want to clean this up, if we want to redact some stuff and then put that up later as tranche 8, we can, so it was there ready to go. But you weren't supposed to see it. You certainly weren't supposed to see it yet. Right. So, and there's people are also talking about some of the PDF documents that in an attempt to redact now, and this one I really think might be some disappointed, employees that were tasked with redacting Trump's name off of everything. Because what they did is, instead of actually putting the redact box, putting the black box over all the text, and then, saving it as one layer where there's no way to see what's been redacted, I'm told that some of these files were just highlighted with black, so that all you got to do is just highlight it to see the text, right? Complete boomer move. Unbelievably incompetent. Or chat, are there people working there who maybe are pissed off at having to cover for Trump? Either possibility is we could entertain.
The victims are on the plane. Like, I think the public is done with, well, nothing happened. It's like, what are you doing there? It's gross.
Well, I think the question is, did nothing happen with everybody? I mean, how's that like what I've been saying from the beginning is, I think it's definitely possible that a lot of the people in these files did nothing. I just don't believe all of them did nothing. Right. And that's what I refuse to believe. And when you see there's 10 co-conspirators, you go,
oh my God, Narwhal by Nature just checked. What does it reveal?
Where are the charges for the other people? And actually, you see...
And is it something that we could look at? Because obviously, some of what they redacted, we're assuming are like names and identifying information around victims, like victims of Epstein. That obviously we don't want to show. But the way that they're playing with this language is a little bit cagey. And the way that Kash Patel said that there were, no more... there was nobody else in the files that was implicated, other than victims, right? And so it makes you wonder, given that we know that there's 10 co-conspirators now, was he calling some of Epstein's clients victims? Was he classifying them under that? There's some answers we don't have, and we'll try to get to the bottom of them for you.
Interesting, I would almost call it a counter reaction to all the clamoring for more evidence. The fact that...
Yeah, Dan Bongino stepped down, I think, effective January 1st, right?
There's such little that's been done in charging new co-conspirators. There's been a new thread of reporting that's like, well, there's nothing. This is just all a big to do about nothing. There's a big nothing burger. And there's been some journalists who've now been very vocal about saying, you guys are crazy. He just was trafficking by himself. This was his own personal interest and nobody else was involved. So I think the public doesn't buy the side of it where it's like all of these guys are innocent. And also it gives credence to the idea of, well...
Saw the name of prison witnesses. What I mean is it something that we can look at, or is it something that we need to, needs to be gone over before I can show it on a stream? Because obviously, we do want some redactions, right? We don't want to expose victims' faces, victims' names, anything like that. But at the same time, it's pretty reasonable to assume that not all the redactions are really protecting victims. It's reasonable to assume that Trump might be considering himself a victim, as he said on Fox News, right? They ask him, are you going to release the UFO files? He's like, yeah, we're going to do that, right? Cool. Are release the JFK files? Yeah, no, we're gonna do that, right? You're gonna release the Epstein files. At first, Trump says yes, and he's like, well, just wait, there's so much fake stuff in this world, in Epstein's world, right? And I wouldn't want any innocent people to get harmed by it, right? To get, implicated. Right there, I think, and this was before the election, chat. In other words, we had a chance to stop a second term for America's pedophile prez, at least the one that we know of. Like, maybe there's more, right? But anyway, yeah, if people had taken this stuff seriously before the election and not been so sidecucked, it was obvious that there was something going on with those Epstein files just from that Fox News interview. If you think that the Kamala Harris interview, Moose not Moose. Moose not Mooses. Thank you for the 100 bits, my friend. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Watcher, is that there's every chance that Clinton is implicated by this, and I mean, look, there's been a lot of people that have been president. I believe 47 of them so far, right? We make this assumption that people that are pillars of the community, people that are connected, people that are, connected to the rich and famous, right? That somehow if there was anything bad about them, it would have come up. That's not necessarily true. And from what we're seeing about how the Epstein class protects itself, there's reason to believe that, there might be a lot of these predators out there that that are amongst us and that are, like I said, considered pillars of the community, when in actuality they are predators of the community.
There's these Cinco conspirators. Where are the charges? Like, okay, you say you're not involved, but
Bill Gates should be investigated, as long as you're talking about the Microsoft guy and not Dollar Bill Gates. I feel like Dollar Bill Gates did nothing wrong, but yeah, Bill Gates definitely.
Please go after the people who were clearly
should be investigated.
Enough leads to get grand jury subpoenas. They got to search.
Oh, and good point. Hayate says there's a lot of fake stuff on both ends. Go ignore both sides. No, what I mean. Look, Kamala's not in the files, okay? Bill Clinton is. Right? But what I mean is that shit was up on Fox News. And if you're a Fox News viewer and you voted for Trump, right, you kind of made a mistake by just watching that interview on the network, right? Just like the Kamala interview that was, that had some embarrassing stuff cut out on CBS. Trump had a similar interview on Fox News, and they did the same thing. They cut it out. Nobody sued Fox News over it, right? And Fox definitely hasn't paid out. But I do want to point out that you're right in a way, but maybe not the way you're thinking, Hayate. The fake stuff is in there, is in the files, I mean, right? So the stuff that the DOJ has been giving us apparently includes stuff that they've gone through and investigated and discredited or debunked, right? The example that I would point to is the video that purports to be Epstein unaliving himself. Now, we've all heard that the cameras were off during the moment that Epstein died, and so being able to see whether he was murdered or whether he Epsteined himself, right? We don't have that video, but there's a video out there that looks like Epstein, choking himself, right? That one's been debunked. That one's fake. That one was, I guess, sent to the FBI. So in other words, we've got stuff in there that's being released without any context, and I think that's the dirty thing that the Trump administration is doing, right? If you're going to release everything, right? Including the fake stuff, but put the context into it that, like, this has been, because people ran with this stuff. People were like, oh shit, we got Epstein killing himself, right? We got the video right here. People ran with it. And the more that this happens, the more that people run with stuff that's in there, but that is not real, the more likely that Trump, when there is a smoking gun that pops up, is going to be able to say, yeah, this is more of that fake. You remember that fake stuff earlier? Remember those celebrities that were in there? And, there's nothing on them in terms of committing crimes with Epstein, but, they were in the photos with Epstein. Well, Trump's just like that. So that's why it's there. And that's what it's doing. That's the game that they're going to try to play. I just don't think that it's going to work. Because in addition to, people like Hayate that are still riding that Trump train a year after they should have gotten the fuck off, right? There's people like the Watcher and Twitch chat, and even Asmongold, even fucking Asmongold at this point is done with Trump, right? If you're such a dead ender that you keep on riding that Trump dick longer than Asmongold, what does that say about you? Like, what's going on in your life? I ask because I'm concerned, right? How has Trump become so important in your life that you're willing to twist yourself into do like logical gymnastics in order to try to deny what's right in front of all of our face right now? We elected a PDF prez. That's what it looks like to me anyway. We're going to look further down the rabbit hole and see what we find.
For evidence of a co-conspirator, you have to have there's a bar of evidence to get that search warrant. You've got to go talk to a judge. You got to get their approval. I mean, how did that lead nowhere? And if it did lead nowhere, tell the public exactly how.
Look, if you don't recognize that there was reason to not vote for Trump in 2024, you are on some kind of train or some kind of dick, something that I don't even want to think about, where that motivated reasoning is coming from. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. And look, just like the Democrats replaced their fucking aging, decrepit, dementia-riddled president, they replaced him with the vice president. The Republicans could have done that too if they'd been serious about it. But it's just like there was too much, you're too worried about eating the cats and dogs to notice that your own dude is like, well, I don't know about those Epstein files, right? It was right there for you. Sus as fuck. And yet, it just, wasn't nearly as interesting as what Tren de Aragua in Colorado and Haitians eating your dog and cats in Ohio and and the non-existent trans athletes winning gold medals, right? There was a lot of bullshit in that election. There was some important stuff that was talked about too that really Biden and then Kamala didn't handle well, right? Their response to Americans saying that America is no longer affordable after 40 years of a rise in productivity. In other words, you're making more money for your boss, but you're getting paid virtually the same rate. Your pay rate has flatlined, right? That after 40 or so years of that, even with, Biden supporting labor rights, even with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, even with the things that Biden actually did right, Americans aren't okay. So yeah, I'm not trying to let Kamala Harris off the hook for a terrible, terrible campaign.
How that happened.
Yeah, and we're still missing a lot of that. The affidavits that accompany the warrant would be, explosive. The federal indictment, still, we haven't seen the details of it, nor have we seen the affidavits that accompany it.
Hi, Ate says, why are you calling him my own dude as if I agree with him? It's not the issue. I see everyone pull this. Oh, you're on his side. I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on my own. I just want to know, what about you being your own side necessitates you defending, pedophiles, right? That's my confusion, right?
That's the stuff that, I think that Trump very much does not want out, because they are charges, they're allegations, and the public will treat them as
But yeah. If I'm misunderstanding what you're getting at from chat, Hayate, I apologize. I'm looking at 3 chats right now, one from Twitch, one from regular YouTube, and one from Shorts. So, I only have a little time to read and understand everyone's chat. So feel free to clarify your viewpoint if I haven't understood it correctly.
Kind of settled fact. Whereas, but it could be a lot of bad stuff in there. These are things that the federal prosecutors allege. And, we're so used to the news covering what federal prosecutors allege that's what people will naturally do. We as reporters often say, don't take federal allegations as fact. These are allegations. They need to be proven. The public takes them as fact, and federal prosecutors love to just basically make sure that people believe that they are fact. So they're kind of caught in a vice of their own creation here. So that's why I think they're trying to keep those documents. There's no evidence that there are these 10 co-conspirators, but the fact that federal prosecutors Like they haven't presented the evidence yet. But the fact that federal prosecutors believed there were 10 co-conspirators.
Yeah, he's referring to the email from the attorney from the Southern District, assistant attorney from the Southern District of New York there.
That's news, and it's huge news. And now we want to know why they believe it.
Which we should mention on this point.
Well, look, if your point is that like Bill Clinton's a sicko and so is Donald Trump, I agree with you, Hayate. And, no, Hayate doesn't have main character syndrome. I was just responding to their chats. So that if they feel like a main character, it's my fault.
How random stuff that you would hope investigators are scraping into this broader.
Oh, no, God. Did I give you too much credit? Are you making the argument now that if there was anything bad about Trump, Biden would have released it because he loves to do lawfare? Is that what you're... I can't tell. I can't tell. Anyway, I'm not going to get one chattered. Apologies. If you need to clarify yourself to chat, feel free. But I'm gonna move the main character to someone else for now.
That
I don't want you getting dogpiled.
Would include this bizarre video, Ryan, that you all flagged initially.
Oh, right.
Because you were changing the URL. Right. Tell us a little bit about this, because I think it gives us some insight.
Yeah, for anybody that is tempted to make that argument, right, that like, well, Biden, had the files, operated the DOJ for 4 years, right, something would have come out. First of all, the Department of Justice is supposed to be, and usually is more or less, independent. That's a really important thing. That's something that we've lost under Trump, right? You can find incidents where the Department of Justice should have been more independent, right? But you can't really find examples to where that wall has corroded the way that it has under Trump. So, you might not be aware that, Biden is not supposed to be running the Department of Justice. And secondly, listen, I'll cop to this, all right? When I heard about Epstein dying in prison, I thought it was suspicious. Right? This was under Trump in 2019. This is the last year of, 2019, is that right? It's 2019, right? Epstein dies in 2019. Anyway, it's under the Trump administration. And, I thought it was suspicious, but I thought that, if anything, if there was anything pointing to him being murdered, that the Department of Justice would handle that, right? Even under Trump, I had like some faith, and even at that time, you do see some independence, at least in the first term, for the Department of Justice. This total erosion of the wall between president and DOJ is more, in fact, obviously Trump fired people, had a number of different people at those positions, but I had faith that it was independent enough that there's not going to be like a case of the century in which the accused gets murdered and, it's reported as a suicide. I had too much faith in the system. Yes, even under Trump, right? So when I didn't hear anything that, that there was some investigation or that maybe he didn't kill himself, when the final report was that, yes, he did kill himself, I believed it. I thought, okay, that's fucking weird. That's fucking sus. But yeah, I guess there's nothing, beyond this, right? It was only when Trump started acting weird that I really realized that something funny was going on here, right? And we don't know what it is. We don't know what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole. And in fact, I joked around about Trump being the presidential, the PDF president. He does look very guilty. Right? He is acting very strangely. He is definitely covering shit up, but that doesn't mean that he did stuff to Epstein's underage, the underage girls that Epstein was trafficking, right? There could be a lot of reasons for him doing that. He could be protecting somebody else. A lot of these wealthy, all of these people in the Epstein class, and if you look at Epstein, they seem to collect dirt on each other. And when enough powerful people collect enough dirt on each other, you have this web of mutually assured destruction. In other words, if one of the people, casts suspicion on one of the other people, then, they've got stuff they can release on them. So for whatever reason, Trump has been gotten to. Trump is compromised, right? Trump is covering up. And, you know, it's a reasonable thing to assume that he might have been involved in Jeffrey Epstein being killed, if that's what happened. There's just so much that we don't know, chat, and we're nowhere near the bottom of the rabbit hole. But yeah, I will cop to the fact that I had too much faith in the system, and that it was only Trump's, like, just out in the open fear of opening up those Epstein files, as we saw in the Fox News article, or the Fox News interview, and as we saw later with Pam Bondi's aborted rollout of the Epstein files. Remember, she said, we're coming forward with these. This is the first. This is part one of the Epstein files, right? She gives out these trapper keepers, right? And all that's in them is previously available information. That's suspicious in and of its own, but she says she's going to come back with part two. Okay, we wait for part two, right? She starts to say stuff like, you know, they're asking, like, what about those Epstein files? Are those coming out? She's like, oh yeah, I got I got them on my desk, right? And it goes from I got them on my desk to they don't exist. That's why I'm suspicious now. That's why my disposition changed. I can't speak for anyone in the Biden administration or anyone else, but yeah, no, it's not a cynical thing. Look, if it was just Bill Clinton, all right, if somehow no Republicans did anything bad, Alan Dershowitz, chat, kept his underwear on, like he says, right? No right wingers did anything wrong, and it was just Bill Clinton and Noam Chomsky. I think they should be fucking prosecuted. I don't care if there's fucking pedophiles doing horrible shit and getting away with it because of who they know. I want them investigated. I want them arrested. I want some justice for those victims, right?
Insight into the process and into what the contents of this larger dump.
Yeah, so basically, somebody seems to have fabricated a video of Epstein in his cell and then sent it to federal investigators, or somebody sent it to federal investigators, and then through that, it wound up in the files, which then were released. And so you get this video released without context of Epstein in his cell seeming to be like choking or something. But yeah, so
well, I want to jump in here. That is their choice to release this without context. I think it's a huge strategic mistake to just dump these files and let the public like just run with it, because if you know something that we don't know, like, why wouldn't you provide some commentary about what it is instead of just trying to let the just
and Emily, click on that
dump
DOJ
it.
link. I think they took it down.
Yeah, they
Click on that one.
There you go.
That was where the video was. What happens when you pull that up?
What do you mean? What happens when I pull what up?
If you that justice.gov link. What happens?
Sorry. It's right here.
Yeah. So yeah, they took it down. So they took this video down.
Just
sorry for the awkwardness on Breaking Point's part. I don't think they were planning on coming into the office to record this today. Obviously, CoffeeZilla is a live streamer, so he's a pro at this. I think that, you know, Ryan and Emily are still kind of waking up, still drinking their coffee here. So yeah, you know, a little bit more dead air. Not really a lot of editing that would have made this more watchable.
Complete mess. Just a complete mess. I wanted to bring up. By the way,
so that's the video. You may have seen this. Is about 14 seconds. It says J. Epstein. Yeah, it seems to be, I don't even know what this is. It's from like 6 years ago. Posted on YouTube back in 2020, maybe 5 years ago. Wait. Oh, it's a 3D render. Okay. I was going to say, that's before the age of AI. At least from what I remember.
What did y'all make of, the prosecutors were clearly getting frustrated with Prince Andrew, who is one of the people obviously being both looked at, but also he was at the time trying to clear his name with some PR. So he...
Amy Pike, I think that comes up. I vaguely remember what you're talking about. Sounds familiar. I don't remember if it was CoffeeZilla and Breaking Points who mentioned that, but I did see something about that today. No podcaster wants to touch that part of the files. So this is a victim, right? Or a purported victim, right, Amy? that ended up dying in a pretty horrific way.
Releases to the public, hey, I'm cooperating with federal investigators. Investigators send each other like these links to the Sun and, basically they're reporting on it. And they're like, this guy's not cooperating with us. He's not doing an interview. They reached out to him and they started leaking on their own terms like, no, this guy's not cooperating with us. You have a back and forth between Prince Andrew's lawyer and, the U.S. government, where the Prince Andrew's lawyer is like, you guys said it was going to be confidential. And they're like, you lied to the public. Right. I mean, it's kind of fascinating to see this jockeying for public narrative, right? Between people who are clearly, on the one hand, Prince Andrew's a person of interest. On the other hand, Prince Andrew's trying to get out in front of the story. Obviously, he's been stripped of his title now. Do you think we know everything there is to know about... do you think we know everything the Crown knows about Prince Andrew's involvement with Epstein? Or do you think they just did it out of an abundance of caution? Or do you think there is proven allegations somewhere buried in here that we haven't seen yet?
I would suspect that they also have enormous numbers of private allegations that are separate from this.
That's probably true.
Because, when they first started reporting on this, I had been separately doing reporting on Prince Andrew and his relationship with this shady bank that was doing work with the UAE, and people were telling me his widely known nickname was Randy Andy, and so I think when the Epstein stuff came in, it was more like, yeah, okay, this tracks, and then he gave absolutely debacle of an interview where he's like, yeah, I don't sweat. None of this can be true because I don't sweat. So it was just this unending.
You couldn't look more guilty at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't sweat. So I think that's my suspicion, that the family just kind of knew, his name's Randy Andy, and he's always running around with inappropriately aged young women or older girls. And so they're like, this is just too much for us. That's my suspicion. So I don't know if they even need to know more than is in this document.
Might be losing you a bit, Ryan.
Oh, well. Oh, sorry. Well, that's about all I got.
No, I think he just went quiet and he was hoping somebody else would talk. Oh no, there's something going on with our audio.
Before we wrap, I just wanted to get your final thoughts on this, and maybe also just from the perspective of somebody who's been in the knee deep in all of this for days, with the new documents being in some cases 72 hours. We've had actually a little bit more at this point because it's Wednesday and we started getting them on Friday, but you're also connecting the bigger pieces of the puzzle. I always say my perspective on what's going to happen with Epstein is the government's not going to accidentally or intentionally release a smoking gun document. In all likelihood, any document, whether it's a picture
did they say CIA when they meant MI5?
Or an email that contains a smoking gun, is already gone. It's been destroyed, deleted, and it's certainly not going to get released to the public accidentally. Although with this DOJ, that possibility seems to be higher because
it would be very on brand.
There's a level of incompetence to all of it. It looks like to me another evidence or another example of JFK syndrome, where we get a steady drip over the course of decades of documents that are released and personal testimonies of people involved, and the public then has 900 pieces of 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and there's always going to be 10 that are missing. And so over the course of decades, as the years go on, the picture becomes more and more clear, but you can never be definitively certain of what happened. That's what I feel like what the Epstein investigation, at least publicly, is going to end up, and that's what I think it's becoming. So I'm curious for your position on that, having, just as you still are, been in the weeds of all of this for days.
I think that's right. I think it's absolutely going to become the next JFK. I think people are going to be talking about this for decades. I think they're going to data drip it out, like you said. I think there's, given their evasiveness, nobody trusts that they wouldn't kind of.
Brian Isaacs, I've already been over this, right? I didn't give a shit for 4 years because I stupidly trusted the Trump DOJ. All right? Because you know who was in charge when Epstein didn't kill himself, probably was killed, that was Trump. That was Donald Trump, okay? And when the DOJ, people don't remember, right? Because the DOJ right now is so politicized. There's absolutely no separation between the presidency and the DOJ, right? Donald Trump controls that shit. Donald Trump has got his people doing what he wants in those positions, investigating, Tish James and James Comey and people that just like there's no he can't even indict these people, right? But under Trump 1, it wasn't like that. The first Trump administration had a DOJ that was at least somewhat independent, evidenced by the fact that, Jeff Sessions, Bill Barr, what is it, Comey when he started, right? These people didn't always do what he wanted and they got fired for it, right? So that shows that there's some independence there. And I stupidly trusted that DOJ, if there was anything else that went on with Epstein other than him unaliving himself, that DOJ would have gotten to the bottom of it, right? I trusted it. I said, I guess there's nothing here. I guess there's not. It looked hella suspicious, right? When Epstein turns up dead. But I believed them when they said nothing to see here. And I moved on like the rest of America, right? And it's only when Donald Trump started hemming and hawing about releasing the Epstein files on Fox News in 2024 before the election that I said, hey, there might be something to this. And I started talking about this. I started streaming about this. I started looking into this, right? But yeah, that's why nobody's been concerned about this for 4 years, because people more or less believed the official story, or the media got bored with it, right? Nothing was going to happen. It's only once Trump starts acting guilty as fuck that you start to say, what is actually going on here? What are they afraid of? It's only when the Trump administration ran on releasing the Epstein files. Remember, J.D. Vance, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, right? All these people said, yeah, we're going to release the Epstein files. Trump was the only one that was slightly cagey about it, right? Pam Bondi announces your release is coming. And then when it comes time to release them, she says, there's nothing to see. There are no files. These are not the droids that you're looking for. When somebody fucking bullshits me like that, gaslights me like that, yeah, I'm going to be interested and want to see what's going on. All right? This isn't a fucking political issue to me. If Bill Clinton is in those files, if Bill Clinton has done fucked up shit to like minors, he should be investigated and he should be punished. Same thing with Noam Chomsky or Jimmy Buffett. Like this is... my dad, the old singer or something that my dad listens to, right? But who shows up in those files? Who's in a picture with Clinton and his wife and Maxwell and Epstein, right? Like, I mean, are some of these people just coincidentally there? Sure, it's entirely possible that Jimmy Buffett was just a backer of Bill Clinton, was a friend of Bill Clinton, and Bill's like, hey, I want to introduce you to my friend Jeffrey. Right? Maybe Jimmy Buffett didn't do anything wrong, but I want to get to the bottom of it. And I don't care who it implicates. I don't care who it uncovers. I think that the victims of Jeffrey Epstein deserve a little bit of justice.
Keep back a few files, right? Under the guise of some rolling production or ongoing.
I think it's time for the Epstein class to face justice. I think it's time to uncover this and see what's underneath and end their impunity, right? Trump has practiced impunity, and he's not the only one. If you're rich, as Trump said, if you're rich, they let you do it. They let you get away with it. The rich have gotten away with way too much. And whether it's Donald Trump or Bill Clinton or Bill Gates, I want to see them face justice.
Investigations, or we had to redact
Victims.
it for XYZ. Yeah, victim reasons. So
National security. Let's not forget about national security.
Of course, it's a national security interest. Epstein's, Lolita Express. So I do think that's
Jonathan Cameron, dude, Trump didn't do anything. Yeah, he didn't release the files like he said he would. That's why we're here, Jonathan. That's why we're here. Because he was all gung-ho about releasing those files until he got a look in them. He saw something in those files that he didn't like. I want to see what's in. I want to see what he saw. I want to see what changed his mind.
that's going to continue. I mean, I'll bring it all back to public trust. The administration has completely lost the public's.
Don Campbell, why does no one care that the victims have said Trump did nothing wrong? That's not true, Don, because when you say the victims said, you're saying all the victims, and all the victims have not said that, right? I'll give you another example. Virginia Joffrey, no longer with us, took her own life, right? She implicated, before she died, Alan Dershowitz, right? Trump lawyer and, just perennial lolcow, Alan Dershowitz. Look him up if you don't know about this guy's history. He's you know, and you know, he's one of these. He's the guy that claimed that he's like, I did nothing wrong. I kept my underwear on for every massage, right? He's all but told us that he, you know, received massages, you know, at Epstein's place. But right, Alan Dershowitz sued Virginia Joffrey and got her to recant her testimony, right? That's why. Do you understand? The victims, if they know anything about Trump or anyone else, and I'm not concluding, you know, that I don't think we have enough information to 100% know that Trump participated in the predation of underage victims with Epstein, right? What I do know is that Trump is covering up for whoever did. What I do know is that there are 10 unindicted co-conspirators that we have not heard about, and who Kash Patel all but assured us did not exist. Trump's been lying. His administration's been lying. Pam Bondi's been lying. Kash Patel's been lying. Dan Bongino just quit rather than be forced to cover for Trump. How much more do you need to see?
Belief in them on this issue specifically, and I think that's across the board. I don't even think like straight down the line Republicans believe anything this admin says about Epstein. It's just on this issue, they've lost everyone's.
So Big Leaf Energy is talking about the connection to intelligence. Believe me, we're going to get into that, at least when it comes to the CIA. The Mossad, I don't have as much information about. We do have information, though, to connect Epstein to the CIA. Saying that the Mossad is involved isn't, you know, at all out of the question. I think that's a possibility. We know that Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, was working for a number of intelligence services, including the Mossad. So yeah, no, we're just because we're watching CoffeeZilla talk about Tranche 8 right now does not mean we're not going to explore at least some of the intelligence connections. Now, I can't make stuff up for you. I'm gonna try not to like theory craft for you, or you know, I'm not QAnon, in other words, right? But I will give you what we've got. And yes, Drop Site News, of which Ryan is a part. Ryan Grimm is on this video too, right? From Breaking Points. He has done some research, yes, connecting Epstein at least to the CIA. And I suspect that there's a lot of you in chat that don't know a lot about the activities of our clandestine intelligence service, right? It's a long story that goes back many years, right? Goes back, you know, we're going to go back to, you know, Ronald Reagan and the Iran-Contra affair right now in the connection that I'm talking about with Epstein. And, you know, if you want to, you can go back and learn about the CIA's connection to the dirty war in Laos, you know, one of the countries that Kissinger expanded bombing into in the Nixon portion of the Vietnam War, right? They have a long history of this kind of stuff. And yeah, it does seem like Epstein was involved in them, and it does explain possibly some of where Epstein got his money from. So we're going to be looking into that. We're going to be looking into Les Wexner. Hopefully we will have time for all of this. There's a lot going on, chat. The fucking internet has just exploded, right? This hit the water, and it's just been like piranhas, right? There's been so much discourse about this, and people looking into Tranche 8, seeing what they can find. It's a lot more useful than some, you know, what the other stuff that the DOJ has posted in terms of, for instance, knowing about the co-conspirators, which I think is a huge breakthrough. So yeah, we got some breakthroughs here, and I'll give you what I can, but I'm not God, to quote Alex Jones. So, you know, I can't create reality for you, but I'll try to help you. I'll try to help you navigate it.
Trust collectively, and that puts them in a kind of a no-win position, but also as they make these blunders, it seems like the only belief we have is in their incompetence and them accidentally releasing something, but also they can never really falsify it because it's like, it's one of those things where because they've lost so much public trust in the way they've been handling it, because they've been acting so evasive, they put the public in this position of how can we ever think that we got the full story when you've been acting so strange about it this whole time. And, you know, I don't see that going away anytime soon. Like, I think it's going to be a deep problem. And the fact that in the last administration, we didn't see a lot of interest.
Wait, I'm sorry. Pokeboys says, or perhaps they're using these informants to take down the largest trafficking ring on the planet while keeping them embedded. Pokeboys, you're not talking about Donald Trump, are you? When you say informants, is Trump one of the informants that you're talking? This isn't the white hat pedophile theory, is it? Look, I've heard about this theory. I've heard that there's some right wingers that are sort of using this idea to cope that Trump only seems guilty. Trump was only part of Epstein's world because he wanted to expose Epstein, right? And so he had to become a white hat pedophile. Listen, he abused those underage girls for the truth, for justice, right? I don't know though. I don't know. What are you like? I'm not sure what you're saying when you say informants. Who are you talking about? Who are the informants? Obviously not. Thank you. Yeah. But I literally don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to, I'm trying to touch base with chat and, pick your brains for stuff. But, there's only so much I can do.
Facing these either means, well, where is their credibility too? It's like right now it's just we know this is a weak spot for Republicans who are pushing on this issue. That's what it seems to me to be politically. But do they have the public trust in we're going to come out?
SoCal Bolts fan points out that FBI informants become informants when they get caught. And yeah. So sometimes somebody being an informant is not because they are a heroic person that wants justice. Sometimes it's because they got caught breaking the law. And in order to avoid consequences for themselves, they have turned state's witness, right? What evidence that Trump did that? No, we're not talking about. I'm asking you, Pokeboys.
Now they're a freaking communist invading radicals.
Yo, look at that chat. You did this. You've engaged with the stream so hard that like it's going crazy. I'm trying to hold on here, chat. But we just got Joel Sivera just gifted 5 community subs on Twitch. Signrise, you just got jellyfished. The Watcher, you just got jellyfished. Anti-corporatist just got jellyfished. 4 unwed cats just got jellyfished. Mao Meow, you also got jellyfished. And that's a good thing. But anyway, I'm trying to understand what Pokeboys is talking about. The redacted co-conspirators. Oh, okay. So there's any number of possibilities, right? But the one thing I want to point out to you, I don't know if you realize this, but the existence of these co-conspirators kind of contradicts what Kash Patel said under oath, right? But yeah, we don't know what we don't know. Look, I'll give you another possibility, right? There's a chance that the FBI looked into these co-conspirators and one by one said, this guy's got an alibi. This woman is, right, there's not enough proof to go forward with a case against her, right? They might have looked into each of these cases and they might have a good reason for not pursuing them. Now, I'm going to throw a little cold water on that possibility because I think that given that this is a Trump administration, given that this DOJ has virtually zero independence from its president, that if there was anything like that, if there was anything that, makes Kash Patel not look like a liar and that, disproves the co-conspirators or explains why they weren't investigated, I feel like they would have released it already. It's such an easy thing to do, such an obvious thing to do. And if you want to, stem the tide of people, theorizing about what's actually going on here, that would be a great place to start. The Trump administration is not giving us that information.
going to tell you actually, the truth about it. If they come out and say, we cleared Trump, if they come out and say that, like the Democrats, they come out and say later, oh, he did kill himself in that cell, are people going to believe it? Or are they just going to say, no, you're lying too?
Ryan, as we wrap here, I'm curious for your final thoughts with the big picture that you've been working on, which is intelligence ties. Anything in this latest round of revelation, are you pulling at any threads here with that bigger picture in mind? You're muted, Ryan.
I think he's having internet problems.
I think the new Wexner stuff, the number of co-conspirators, the amount of evidence we have of his criminality over the years that didn't lead to his prosecution until the very end, is all interesting. Might have just lost you again.
Yo, Narwhal by Nature, thank you for the super sticker.
But yeah, check out Jmail, check out CoffeeZilla's post. If people haven't seen it yet,
Okay, and we looked at that stuff last night. They're again
great resource.
I suspect. Okay, so that's Jmail. Check out the site if you haven't looked at it already. This is what I think. This is what DropSite set up. Oh my gosh, do I have it open somewhere here? Jmail.world/drive. It's the website that we're looking at here. It looks a lot like Gmail, Google Drive, and all that stuff, except when you type it in, you'll notice you're logged in as Jeffrey Epstein, right? So this is just the way that that DropSite has chosen, I love it, right? Chosen to organize these files, right? All of the files, whether they're released by the DOJ or the House Dems oversight, or I think the that is the House Dems oversight, right? All the files are here on the J drive, right? Not the Google Drive, but the J drive, and then if you click over to Jmail, remember you click over to Jmail, you see all the emails involved in this case, right? It's searchable. It's searchable, unlike from what I've heard from people, the DOJ website. It is easily searchable and accessible. So check that out if you've got some time to do so. And if you find anything cool, let me know. Let me know in chat. Yeah, there we go. Oh, wow. I was like, wait a minute, is that my email? No, that's Jeffrey's. That's Jmail.
It's incredible.
You can search it by people.
It's a very dark place to spend time, but when you do it, really, I think people usually say something humanizes.
Look at that chat. You got Jmail, you got JPhotos, J Drive. What is that? Instead of like Amazon, it's like Jamazon. I don't know what they're calling the Spotify one, but I'm guessing that's Epstein's playlist, which was also released
with a positive connotation. But this humanizes, I think, Epstein in an obviously horrifying way, to be like going through what appears to be his inbox as it would have appeared. So it's very eerie, but I think also an incredible tool. So thanks to the team that's making all of this possible, and thanks to both of you for spending so much of the holiday season knee deep in Epstein emails.
Ass deep in Epstein chat. That's the title for today's stream. Anyway, let's. Is this the one? God, there's so much that's come out about this now.
Okay, nothing like a Christmas Eve news dump. Today we got yet another document dump in the ongoing release of the Epstein files, and a few things remain true.
How do I get to the Jmail playlist? Look, you can type Jmail. Wait, what is it again? Jmail.world, I think, is the website, right? You can type that into your browser. Or if you are lazy, you can go to CoffeeZilla's video, and I think the link is in the video as well. So that's how you get to Jmail.
Gone through our amazing.
And I would show it to you myself, chat. When I pulled it up, the first few pictures in it were sex toys, right? The first few pictures that popped on screen were like stuff I can't show you on Twitch, unfortunately.
Team here at MS Now has gone through a lot of this as much as they can. I mean, one, despite a legal requirement based on a law that was passed, again, remember this, with near unanimous support to release all the relevant documents by last Friday, only a fraction of that material is available as of yet, even after the news dump today. Two, the Justice Department continues to redact vast swaths of information, and in many cases, those redactions don't seem to have logical explanations, really at all, and we'll talk about that. But despite all of that, this batch probably, of the batches, had the most new information about Jeffrey Epstein, his criminal enterprise, and the many attempts to hold him accountable. Now, perhaps the biggest bombshell in today's dump of files is this July 2019 email exchange between DOJ officials, suggesting that investigators were looking at 10 potential Epstein co-conspirators at the time. That's obviously huge news, since to this day, only one Epstein co-conspirator has ever been charged in the case, and that's, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell. But in this email exchange, the names of most of those suspected co-conspirators are redacted. And it's really not clear why, especially because the law mandating the release of these files does not allow redactions on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. I mean, the whole reason so many people have demanded the release of these files was to expose the people who participated in Epstein's crimes without consequence. And there may be even more information on potential co-conspirators that the Justice Department is still holding on to.
Wait, what is this? Amy Pike says doctors are worse than Epstein, just like doctors in general, like anyone with a PhD, or do you mean MDs?
I mean, another email that appears to be from a federal prosecutor in New York reveals the existence of a 7-page memo on, quote, co-conspirators we could potentially charge. The email also mentions an apparently updated 86-page co-conspirator memo that appears to have been drafted later in 2019, as well as a corporate prosecution memo that is 13 pages. And to be clear, we don't know why that email was drafted. But so far, it does not appear that any of these memos have been released by the Justice Department. And again, exposing potential co-conspirators is a big reason that Epstein survivors have been fighting to release these files. This is not just a story.
Yeah, this is wild. Quite to the contrary of people, of the survivors proclaiming Trump's innocence. Isn't there even one of the survivors was like a Trump voter and is now flipped on him based on him, like, you know, blocking transparency on this?
About what Donald Trump did or didn't know. I mean, of course, that's important. He's the president of the United States right now. But it is about a much larger cover-up of rich, well-connected men who preyed on young women trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. So when I learned about
RCS, that's what it's in the Jamazon. Yeah, if you just click the Jamazon, the J Amazon logo, and it gives you his Amazon deliveries. Yeah, there's some weird shit in there too. I think
in these files, and some of the big questions it still leaves out there, I was immediately reminded of what Charlene Richard told me earlier this year.
Oh my God. Magnetic Tuartara says, "Be right back. I gotta brush my teeth." You just made me, like, I saw teeth and I was like, oh my God, do I have matcha on my teeth? Are my teeth green? Maybe.
What survivors know but still cannot say about who participated
Epstein bought an oxygen concentrator
in Epstein's crimes. Are these people, when the list is...
Is that like what an oxygen bar has? Like, you know, these bars that you go, like, I don't know, supposedly it has like raised levels of oxygen and it makes you feel a certain way. I don't know.
Release that people would know. Are they people who are famous in some capacity?
Yes.
And are there names out there that have not been out there yet
Yes.
that you were trafficked to?
There's names of people that are out there that are not on the list.
All of that is a reminder that there's still a lot we don't know about the people who enabled, abetted, or participated in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. I mean, today, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer responded to DOJ's decision to redact the names of those Epstein co-conspirators, saying the Department of Justice needs to shed more light on who was on the list, how they were involved, and why they chose not to prosecute. Protecting possible...
Yeah, that's all we need, right? You know, again, nobody's jumping to conclusions about the unindicted co-conspirators, but like until we get an explanation, it seems fishy.
Conspirators is not the transparency the American people and Congress are demanding. No question about that. I mean, today's file dump also shed light on other aspects of the Epstein investigation with even more bizarre and difficult to explain redactions. I mean, for instance, in one file, 2 unnamed people who appear to be investigators correspond via email about a photo one of them claims to have obtained from the cell phone of former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who I should note has not been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. But the email reads, quote, "I've been looking through Steve Bannon's phone. Quote, I found an image of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on Bannon's phone. You can see screenshot attached. Then there's a large redaction covering whatever the sender attached to the bottom of the message." Now, why?
Maybe a picture?
Why is it redacted? We don't know. In another file released today, someone at the Department of Justice alerted a colleague.
So what does that mean? Is Bannon like keeping, I don't know, some kind of dirt on Trump just for contingency's sake?
In 2020 that, quote, Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported. Now, of course, we've known for years now that Trump's name appears multiple times on the flight logs for Epstein's private jet, despite Trump's assertions as recently as last year that, quote, I was never on Epstein's plane. We know that's not true now. We've known it. But this 2020 email from a DOJ official sheds new light on who accompanied Trump and Epstein on some of those flights, including one flight in 1993 where the only passengers listed were Epstein, Trump, and a then 20-year-old whose name is redacted. Now, the DOJ official goes on to note that on the 2 other flights with Trump, 2 of the passengers, respectfully, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. That's what we know at this point. We also learned from these documents today that in 2021, the Justice Department subpoenaed Trump's Mar-a-Lago club for employment records. We don't know whose employment records they were seeking, but we do know that
Some chance it was Virginia.
Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre had previously been employed at Mar-a-Lago. There are also new revelations about other public figures as well. I mean, one file released today shows an email addressed to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2001, which appears to come from the person formerly known as Prince Andrew. In it, the man who vaguely himself...
the Andrew formerly known as Prince, yes.
Identifies himself vaguely as A, vaguely asks if Maxwell has found him some, quote, new inappropriate friends.
Ooh.
We've reached out to the royal family for clarification on that and have yet to hear back. Now, the documents released today also include images of what appears to be a fake Austrian passport with Jeffrey Epstein's photo under a different name. Another email.
Wait, TDS, Pete Dolloff, you got to help me. Is that when bullshit comes out of your mouth from Trump's dick syndrome? When you've been glazing that Trump dick so hard and just like all manner of cope comes out uncontrollably? All of a sudden you find yourself in a YouTube stream, like, you know, trying to do mental gymnastics for your parasocial daddy. Is that what we're talking about? Trump's dick syndrome?
Chain from the day of Epstein's death suggests that U.S. Attorney's Office was left in the dark for hours after Epstein was found dead in his prison cell. As someone from that office complained, quote, it has now been hours since this was reported publicly. It is extraordinarily frustrating to have to tell Epstein's attorneys that we have less information than the press. There's also an email in which Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, appears to be explaining why his office never consulted Epstein's victims before granting Epstein a sweetheart deal. His office was later found to have broken the law by not doing exactly that, by the way. So we're learning different new things about the Epstein
I'm
case.
sorry, that was Acosta we're talking about? Okay, God, there's so much to keep track of in this case. And I have ADHD, chat. It's not helping. I don't even think, chat, that Vyvanse is legal in the country that I'm in.
It was so peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
I think if I went to a doctor to treat for ADHD meds, the best I'd get would be Ritalin.
Documents. We're getting
And who wants Ritalin?
some
Not
new
me.
insight into Epstein's criminal behavior, new details about how prosecutors bungled the case against him. But answers to the big questions concerning who knew about Epstein's crimes and who may have participated in them are still shrouded in a lot of black ink. The DOJ is still required by law to release that information, and the members of Congress who wrote that law are holding them to account. This week, Congressman...
Where was I 4 years ago? I've explained this, Gayla, but you just got here, so let me explain it again. I stupidly believed the Trump 45 Department of Justice would have gotten to the bottom of it if Epstein had been killed, right? I stupidly believed that there was actually nothing to see there, right? At the time, I had reason to believe this. The Trump administration, the first 4 years, there actually was some independence from the DOJ, right? Now with Pam Bondi, I can't say that anymore. But yeah, I had more faith than I should have in the Trump DOJ.
Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie threatened Attorney General Pam Bondi with inherent contempt charges if the full Epstein files are not released. And Congressman Ro Khanna joins me here now. He's the lead co-sponsor of the Epstein Files Transparency.
Oh wait, Stratera, I should look into that. Yeah, I should see. I should see.
Act, which required the Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files by last week. Again, just to restate for everyone, thank you for being here with me. I just kind of highlighted some of the big pieces that stuck out to me.
Yeah, here's what changed. So for anybody who wants to know what changed, why do I think there's something here now when I didn't think that there was something there 4 years ago? It is because of how Trump is acting, which is guilty as fuck in relation to the Epstein files. This started last year during the presidential campaign when he interviewed with Fox News. Fox News asks him, so you're going to release the JFK files? Trump says, yeah, we're going to release those. You're going to release the UFO files? Trump says, yeah, we're going to release those too, right? Then they ask him, you're going to release the Jeffrey Epstein files? And at first he says yes, because he's just, he's been saying yes to everything. And he's like, well, actually, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of fake stuff in that world, and I wouldn't want any innocent people to be caught up in that. That was my first clue. That there was something more to this Epstein thing, right? And ever since then, Trump's behavior, Bondi's behavior, Kash Patel's behavior, the fact that they were so gung-ho about, bringing this stuff out. And then as soon as they got to look at what's in the files, they were like, whoa, no. There's nothing to see here, right? Kash Patel's, statement that there's nothing else to investigate
So peaceful up here, but now there are
is kind of raging assassin. I don't know what fucking silo you're living in, but 70% of the country is anti-Trump at this point. Don't act like this is some niche fucking thing. Like you're the one that's part of you're one of the dead enders, the hangers on, right? Still doing mental gymnastics to try to deny that there's something fucked up going on with Trump and the Epstein files. Now, what is that? I don't know for sure. Could it be that Trump was involved in Epstein files, Epstein's crimes? Sure, I guess, right? That's a possibility. They were, apparently BFFs forever. But it's also a possibility that, there's some other reason that he's covering it up too. And regardless of who's implicated, I want to get to the bottom of it. If it's Bill Clinton, if it's, Bill Gates, if it's Noam Chomsky, right? These victims deserve justice. And they haven't gotten a whole lot of justice. They've got a whole lot of threats and intimidation from the likes of people like Alan Dershowitz to try to silence them. I just want to see this is a revelation. The way that the Epstein class works, what Donald Trump meant when he said, if you're rich enough, they let you get away with it, right? We're starting to find that out. We're starting to find out how this system of, compromat really works. And I'm not saying compromat to imply Russia. I'm just talking about people getting compromised, right? People not being able to tell the truth, not being able to go forward with things because somebody's got leverage on them. Maybe somebody's got leverage on Trump. Okay. It's not proven that he was involved in Epstein's illicit activities with underage girls. But, given Trump's history of, bragging about entering the dressing rooms of underage beauty contest participants, right? I wouldn't say that it's beyond the realm of possibility either. All I'm saying is that there's something fucking rotten in Washington, D.C., and we need to get to the bottom of this. You said, where was I 4 years ago? Motherfucker, where were you 9 years ago when Trump said drain the swamp? I think it's pretty clear and pretty fucking hard to deny that Trump is the swamp, that Trump is protecting the pedophiles, that GOP stands for guardians of pedophiles at this point. And yeah, whether it's Tom Hanks or, you know, whoever, like, let's see what's in those files. Let's see who's involved in this shit. Because Trump is not being forthcoming. Nobody in his administration is. This DOJ is even less transparent than the last one. And like I say, I feel like I got fooled by the last one. I feel like I had too much faith in, you know, the institution of the DOJ more than the Trump administration, right? That the DOJ has traditionally been independent of whatever president that they're appointed by, right? I let my faith in that institution make me believe that maybe there was nothing, maybe there was no proof that, you know, this is just a series of strange circumstances, right? Most famous pedophile in the world with a blockbuster case coming up that may very well implicate the rich and famous ends up dead, right? He dies right when both security cameras are off. And just everything that the Trump administration has done in terms of, you know, the showing us the footage that is missing a minute, right? That was edited with Premiere Pro. Like, they're just everything that they do makes me more convinced that there's something up here. There's something rotten in Scotland.
Me and what
or Denmark. Sorry, Scotland was Macbeth.
Incredible team has tried to comb through here. It really raises a whole lot more questions than are answered. But what did I miss there in my run through?
You got the central fact, which is a document came out saying there are 10 co-conspirators of Epstein that weren't charged. And the reality is, talking to survivors lawyers, they're a whole group of rich and powerful men, many of them on Wall Street and finance, some politicians who have been...
Jace Journey says the whole system is corrupt and we can't vote our way out of this. Look, the French monarchy was corrupt, Jays. They didn't vote their way out of that. All right. What I'm saying is that there may have to be a different solution, just like there was then. And, you know, it may not be pretty. Anyway.
Named who were at the Epstein Island or abused these girls or covered it up. And none of those names have come out. Now, there's a simple way we know for those to come out. They're the 302 FBI witness interviews with these survivors. How do I know those names are in there?
William Milner, how did Maxwell get moved to a party prison? Probably because she played ball with Trump and his attorney, Todd Blanche. Remember this attorney that he sent over to talk to Maxwell? This was his personal attorney that was you know, defending him a few years ago from all the, you know, from all the cases that never got resolved. We never got a verdict on those cases because the Supreme Court said the U.S. president is beyond the law. That's the kind of shit that has to stop. No one should be beyond the law.
Because the survivors have told me that they told the FBI about these names. The survivors' lawyers were in those FBI interview memorandums. None of them have come out. They're all required to come out by law. And you see now the Justice Department backpedaling and really scrambling. They did not anticipate that MAGA would be so upset with the impartial release.
The 10 co-conspirators really stuck out to me. We saw Leader Schumer also call that out. Oh, let's give you a moment there. We'll give him a moment to come back to get his headpiece.
All right, there you
it's
go.
All right.
Thank you.
It's a Christmas Eve.
Yes.
All sorts of things happen. I will give you a moment. I just was saying that it really stuck out to me, the 10 co-conspirators. It also stuck out to Leader Schumer, clearly stuck out to you. We don't know who the majority of these people are. Let me just start by asking you this. In the law that you wrote, is there anything that would require the redaction of these individuals from what was released?
No, quite the contrary. When Massey and I wrote the law, it's a 2-page law. we actually said that you cannot consider reputational harm. You cannot consider embarrassment. You cannot consider the fact that someone was not charged. And what we see is that the Department of Justice, frankly, and this is not exaggeration, is more concerned about hurting the reputation of the rich and powerful men who abused the survivors than they are protecting the survivors. When it came to the survivors, they've released the names. In one case, a survivor's name was released in a horrible way, and she then asked why the FBI file which she was mentioned in was not released. They didn't release the file she's mentioned in, though she's requesting it, and they released her name. So they're breaking...
Yeah. So the whole thing about protecting victims, which is a lot of what the Trump administration is hiding behind at this point, right? The numerous redactions, the pages and pages and pages of black squares blotting out images and black lines blotting out text, right? It doesn't really speak to transparency. In fact, that would be the opposite of transparency. That would be opacity.
The law very clearly.
All right, so there. We'll leave it on that for Jin Saki. Now, I know some people are probably getting pissed off if you're of the right-wing persuasion. Why are you watching MSDNC? Don't worry. We'll watch the Majority Report, right? That's definitely not unbiased source there. All right, let's see what's going on the Majority Report. I am told, chat, that since this is the last Majority Report of the year, that Emma drank a Miller Lite on stream, complete with a straw. Like, that's how the pros drink beer, chat. That's how the
fact that was released last night, this second batch, it being closer to Christmas, that's the kind of thing where, like...
Yeah, Hypervisor says everything they have done is highly irregular and conflicted for any kind of case that they actually care about getting to the... Yeah, absolutely.
Dump bad news where people aren't paying attention as much, but I just...
That's the theory, but I think...
Are they going to go over the unredacted info? Super hyphy dumb Redart. I'm gonna have to go over that before I can show it to you, right? Because the unredacted stuff might also have actual victim names in it. So as soon as we can get that cleared, funded by Putin, definitely. This is what was it? The Edward Gregorian, right? Oh no, I'm sorry, that was Tim Pool. I'm sorry, I got them mixed up with Tim Pool just because Emma embarrassed Tim Pool so badly when she went on his program, right? I tend to get that mixed up, right? Who was getting money from Tenet Media? Yeah,
I agree. It's outdated.
It makes sense. Like,
everyone's
also,
on their phone. You think people are putting their phones away on Christmas? I mean, come on.
A lot of this happened over the 4th of July because I was home then too. But that just means you're home and you can talk about it with your family.
Yeah. I think, I mean, perhaps it's a media PR strategy, but I don't necessarily know if it meets the social media
diminishing returns
age.
On that, yeah.
I would agree. And so some of these documents were available on the DOJ website, and then around 8 p.m. it appears that they were taken down. The Washington Post got the full set of files and has some, really, it has damning things in it about Donald Trump. Some of these documents contain very interesting information about Epstein's death, as well as Trump's many flights with Epstein. And the prosecutors discovered that there were more flights than previously known. But let's read their reporting here. 3 days after releasing a large tranche of Jeffrey Epstein documents that contained few mentions of President Donald Trump, the Justice Department disclosed thousands more files that included wide-ranging references to the president.
Bobby Billow Ray says, if everything were released, we'd expose our entire Congress minus a few. Yeah, this is look, I don't think you're going far enough there, Bobby. It wouldn't just be think bigger. It wouldn't just be the Congress. It'd be the rich. It'd be the capitalist. It'd be the people running our economy, fucking us over on both sides of the transaction, right? Underpaying us for the value, the productivity that we provide their businesses, and then overcharging us at the point of purchase, right? On goods that we need to survive, gouging the prices for things like groceries, things like housing, right? I'm not saying that everybody that's rich is, for the record, is a Epstein, client or anything like that. What I'm saying is that this is the Epstein class, and they're used to acting with impunity. They don't live by the same rules that we do, and that's gotta change. That's gotta be confronted before they take so much power that we are at their mercy, because that's coming up, chat. That's what they're trying to do with AI. So I think it's bigger than Congress. I think it's bigger than politics. I think it is as big as the entire world, and we got to do something about, like, look, when you got a class of people that live beyond the law. I mean, what do you expect to happen if you give them an exception to the law that the rest of us live by? You don't expect them to do shit like this?
The documents show that a subpoena was sent to Mar-a-Lago in 2021 for records that pertain to the government's case against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice in sex trafficking. They include notes from an assistant U.S. attorney in New York about the number of times Trump flew on Epstein's plane, including one flight that included just Trump, Epstein, and a 20-year-old woman, according to the notes. So that means that in 2021, the Trump received a subpoena because we know that Virginia Giuffre, who sadly passed away, has said that that's basically where she was kidnapped, trafficked, was at Mar-a-Lago. So we don't know if that's what that's exactly pertaining to, but it could be. The newly released documents also include several tips that were collected by the FBI about Trump's involvement with Epstein and parties at their properties in the early 2000s. The documents do not
Physique, thank you for the super sticker.
show whether any follow-up information took place, or investigations took place rather, or whether any of the tips were corroborated.
Well, that's a big eye looking at the FBI, and I'd like to see like our folks like Kana, who's been very good on this. What are we going to do about this FBI?
Exactly.
That sat on this and could have stepped in the 90s?
Yeah. I think we know some of the theories about why that's not the case, both protecting the wealthy and powerful, but also his incredibly likely association with both U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies.
Better clean it up.
In a statement Tuesday morning, the Justice Department...
And chat, yeah, that's what we're going next. I do want to somehow cover Trump's statements about this, because I think they were kind of ridiculous. Unfortunately, they're sort of buried in his incoherent speech about renaming, I believe, do I have this right? A class of naval vessels as Trump class destroyers, right? Is that what it is? Anyway, it's in a speech with Hegseth. He talks about this a little bit, but then he does the weave. And he talks about a bunch of unrelated stuff.
Said some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump.
I'm going to have to pee. I'll be right back. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands, though, of Waluigi.
Characterized as unfounded and false. It's right there, next paragraph from where we were reading.
And I'll be right back.
That's all right. Statement Tuesday morning there. But that's amazing. That's the Department of Justice, as I mentioned, acting as Trump's law firm. Perhaps they edited this. They must have edited it. But that was exactly what the release said.
Oh, Waluigi.
Let's go to this part. Epstein, a wealthy financier and convicted sex offender, died in 2019 while in federal custody awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. His death was ruled a suicide. This part is, like, perhaps, in my view, the most incredible revelation. The files include correspondence among prison officials about Epstein's psychological assessments, with discussions about holding him in a special housing unit until about 2 weeks before he died. We have supporting memorandums from the responding officers who indicated they observed inmate Epstein with a makeshift noose around his neck, one of the emails stated. At one point, the documents indicate prison officials planned to house Epstein in a cell with Cesar Sayoc, a fanatical supporter of Trump's, who in 2019 was sentenced to 20 years in prison after he mailed explosive devices to prominent Democrats and media figures. Let's sit with that.
All right, chat. So this is what I'm showing you that the majority report has got that I haven't seen in other places. Epstein, do you get this? Epstein was placed in a cell with a fanatical Trump supporter, right? What is that about? Anyway, I'll be right back.
For a second.
Yeah, can we just meditate on that for a little bit? I mean, that's the ball game.
That's the ball game in my view. I mean, let alone what we know already, which is that the Wired's reporting on the metadata of the footage that was released that was supposedly of Epstein's cell, or was at least in like the vicinity of Epstein's cell, had multiple minutes taken out of it. They called it unedited footage, released it to the public. Wired did an analysis of it forensically and found that it actually really wasn't that hard to figure out, that they'd edited out multiple minutes in Adobe. And now we have the documents showing or indicating that prison officials wanted to house Epstein with a fanatical supporter of Donald Trump, who I'd imagine was quite involved in something like QAnon, where Jeffrey Epstein was a central figure, in the same cell as a guy that would be the most likely to take somebody out. But that might have been a little bit messy, right? Just to have a supporter do it.
Yeah, a little bit too on the nose. But let's just dwell on this Bureau of Prisons thing, because frankly, it looks to me like a den of thieves that needs to be raided. Because here is Todd Blanche on with Kristen Welker this weekend on Meet the Press. And this was just an interesting thing of me as somebody who likes to think we have a democracy and likes to have elected leaders in charge of like things like prisons, caging of humanity. Here's what she was asked. This is a little exchange on this Bureau of Prisons that wanted to put Cesar Sayoc in with Epstein.
Couple more and we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you about Ghislaine Maxwell, who was, of course, convicted in 2021 for her role in helping Jeffrey Epstein traffic his victims. In July, you interviewed her in Florida, where she was serving a 20-year sentence in federal prison. Just a week later, Maxwell was moved to a more permissive prison camp in Texas. Why was she moved just days after you interviewed her, Mr. Blanche?
So that's a Bureau of Prison security issue that I will not talk about.
Did you have anything to do with it? Did you have anything to do with it?
Let me finish. First of all, I am responsible for the Bureau of Prisons. So every decision that they make lands on my desk to the extent it needs to. But just let me talk about the security issue. At the time.
So I'm not going to talk about it. You don't get to know.
You don't get to know, apparently. And
we're going to put maybe a guy who is a fanatical, violent Trump supporter in with a guy that would it'd really benefit Trump if he died.
Completely.
Put him in the same cell. I mean, what are we doing here?
And the Wired story, I can't get over. It should be mentioned every time. It should be mentioned every time. It's quite clear for people that don't know, Trump was president when Epstein supposedly killed himself in his cell. That was, I think, one of the biggest revelations from this latest dump. Here's more. This is on the flight records with Trump. The new documents at times provide a window onto what federal prosecutors had been examining, as well as their awareness of ties that Epstein had with Trump. In January 2020, during Trump's first term, for example, an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York wrote an internal email about a review of flight records the day before as part of the government's case against Maxwell, who was convicted in 2021 of sex trafficking. For your situational awareness, wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously had been reported or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case, the email states. There were at least 8 flights, the prosecutor wrote, between 1993 and 1996 in which Trump was a passenger. on at least 4 of those flights, Maxwell was also present. In some cases, the prosecutor wrote, there were passengers who could be called as possible witness in a case against Maxwell. There you go. And so
I think I should pardon her.
Yeah, right. I wish her well. I wish her well.
I'm actually perfectly placed to know that everything on those planes was totally fine.
And here's another horrific file. This is an image of a letter that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to convicted sex offender Larry Nassar, who, for people that do not know, was a longtime doctor for the United States gymnastics team and at Michigan State. And he is serving a multi-decade sentence right now over child porn charges. Many women, girls, like hundreds, at least over 100, say that he sexually abused them. This is a letter, apparently, that Epstein wrote to Larry Nassar. The text is in the tweet, if you don't mind, because I just can't read this pedo's cursive. But it was returned to the prison because he wrote it, or it was sent out around the same time that Epstein died. 2 files released this morning, Evan Hill, the Washington Post writes, by the DOJ show what appears to be a letter Epstein wrote to convicted sex offender Larry Nassar that was returned to sender after Epstein's death and found in the jail mailroom. The file shows the envelope front and the letter's contents. In the letter, Epstein writes, our president also shares our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab, snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Oh, gosh. My heart bleeds for you, serial predators. I mean, the fact that he found common cause and referred to Trump as our president, it's interesting that he said such a thing.
I mean, you look at Google Trump 2006, where there's like a video I saw of a young woman asking him a question, and he doesn't even listen to what she says. He invites her on stage, gives her a hug, and says, "You're hired."
Yeah.
And says, "That gets me into trouble. I'm like an alcoholic."
Here's another one from number 3 here. This is a transcript of an interview with a limousine driver, and he's speaking about an unnamed victim, it appears, or woman / girl, we don't know, but their name is redacted. Basically, this limousine driver says that they overheard Trump talking about Jeffrey while on the phone and made references to, quote, abusing some girl. The redacted name was unsure who he was talking to, nor who he was referencing, as Blank talked about his time meeting Donald Trump. Blank immediately, it's hard to say, Blank demeanor went stone cold. It seems like this is the limousine driver recounting their conversation with someone else. Demeanor went stone cold as Blank said, he raped me. Someone else said, what? As Blank replied, Donald J. Trump had raped her along with Jeffrey Epstein. And then later, this person that they're referring to, the limousine driver, says that she was found with her head blown off. And there was no way it was a suicide, according to the opinion of this person. There's more, but let's go to Trump last night, who was having a press conference about the most important issue in America.
This is what I couldn't find you yesterday. I was looking at for this. I found you Trump's statement from last week. I think immediately after the DOJ drop. But yeah, this is his reaction to the latest revelation in
America right now, which is that Trump has commissioned a bunch of new warships for the Navy that he calls a Golden Fleet, and they will be named Trump-class battleships. You can't afford groceries and Christmas presents right now, but at least we have this, and of course the ballroom, which I know is keeping our nation together right now. In this press conference, he's asked about the Epstein files, and he just has a lot of empathy for the people who are being implicated.
I mean, we actually threw him out. But no, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can
Oh
handle
wait, no, I did show you this, right?
it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago, and they're, highly respected.
Oh, Trump, you're making clips. You're making clips. Nadia, do you see this? He's making clips. That's going to get clipped. That clip's going to live forever. People who innocently met Jeffrey Epstein. Now, look, is it possible to, meet Jeffrey Epstein without realizing who he is? Sure. Right. But I'm sorry. Innocently met Jeffrey Epstein is not what you should be saying if you're this guy and there's this much evidence pointing to, at the very least, a cover-up, if not a deeper involvement with Epstein than we have yet confirmed. Just call them Epstein-class battleships. There we go, the Epstein Memorial Ballroom. We're going to get to that in a minute. Actually, I should check on that. We're at 86 right now, right? That's the bonus meter. That tells me if we get to do a fun half. I program the free half, which you're in right now, and you get to program the fun half. You do it by voting. The vote is in the YouTube chat, in the not the shorts chat, which is long, but the longs chat, which is short. You know what I mean? The regular chat, the regular stream, right? That's where you go to vote for this stuff. And I should check in and see what's winning. What are we likely to get? Or bonus content, if we get bonus content today. It's what's under Trump's ballroom. Yo, wouldn't you like to know? Yeah, we've talked about the ballroom a little bit, not that much. He destroyed the East Wing to replace it with a ballroom, a sort of Mar-a-Lago of the mid-Atlantic coast, if you will. Well, somebody's got some theories about what might be going on underneath the ballroom, right? What is Trump building under there? The answer might surprise you, but only if you end up choosing that one, and only if we get bonus content, which we're 14 points away from getting. So let's get you back to Majority Report and Trump. We'll finish the Epstein content. I want to also show you the what I found on DropSite about intelligence involvement, about CIA involvement, right? People have been talking about, Mossad involvement, and definitely, Maxwell's father was involved with Mossad. I don't know if we have anything yet connecting Epstein.
At Narwhal,
yo,
super chatted $15. Rudyard, OFC.
Rudyard, of course. What? +7. Narwhal, by nature, you just blew my conception of the bonus content for today into another stratosphere. What are we doing? We're making Rudyard the hero. If y'all don't know Rudyard, you might know him by his YouTube name, What If Alt Hist. He's a special guy. He's our special guy, and we hope that he's doing okay. No, but seriously, it's a conspiracy theorist, historian kind of guy, and they brought him on the Tim Pool show, and I'm curious about how he is, because last time we checked on Rudyard was not doing okay. So anyway, that's where we're at right now, and oh yeah, we're definitely gonna be getting some bonus content here. The question is, how much time will I have to talk about CIA stuff with you? And how safe is that? Is that a good idea for me to even be talking about this stuff? I don't know, Chad. It seems kind of dangerous. But this is where the story goes. So just like the Lolita Express, buy the ticket, take the ride, or something. I'm sure some of the celebrities who ended up visiting his island thought. He only innocently flew the Lolita Express 377 times, innocently stayed in a grand total of 114 weeks on Epstein Island. What? Where he, okay, maybe we're just throwing out numbers here. I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but where he innocently effed 739 girls he did not realize at the time were underage. But yeah.
Respected bankers and lawyers and others, and they'll end up because of guys like Massey, who's a real lowlife, whose polls are down to about 9%, by the way, in the great state of Kentucky. If you
That is not true.
Normal thing to be talking about polling, even if that was true.
Right.
In the context of what you're implicated in, sir.
Yeah.
look at Kentucky. Kentucky is such a
No, keep going, actually. There's more.
great place, but I don't know. They've got a couple of people in there that are very strange in terms of leadership. But Massey's a loser, and he likes it, and that he works with the Democrats. He's just being used by the Democrats, because what this whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein.
The Sun King is off on his mad adventures, building and naming after himself, classes of ships that I'm sure no one ever asked for, right? But to him, this is his AUKUS. Does everybody remember a guy named Joseph Biden? He used to be president. And, he felt a lot like Trump. He felt like he had done a lot for the country, and that, re-electing him should have been, an easy choice to make, right? He did AUKUS, chat. Joe Biden did AUKUS. And he was not shy to tell us every day that he did AUKUS. Unfortunately, nobody cared that Joe Biden did AUKUS, right? They cared about the increasing unaffordability in the country, as well as Biden's declining mental state, as shown by his fateful debate against Donald Trump, when the whole country realized that Biden was beyond cooked. Biden's brain was beyond washed, and that he was not physically capable of running for office.
I thought that was finished. I believe they gave over 100,000 pages of documents, and there's tremendous backlash. It's an interesting question because
ooh, chat, he's doing the frothing at the mouth thing. Is he seething? Is he seething? Is he actually seething? I mean, part of chat is coping. So, like, between the president and his supporters, we got cope and seethe.
People are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein. But
anybody got a good explanation for that? We've heard him do it before. From time to time, he sounds like that. I heard somebody say dentures. Does he have dentures? Is it his dentures slipping? We're not getting normal Trump today.
But they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin the reputation of somebody. So a lot of people are very angry that this continues. A lot of Republicans are angry because of the fact that it's just used to deflect against a tremendous success. Look, we have 8.
I just think it's interesting.
My TDS is crazy. You're going to tell me you don't hear that, Perez? You're going to tell me that that's a normal sounding Trump? I hear a little buzz, and I want to know what's going on with our ailing president. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what stage of Bidening he finds himself at today.
When he talks about who's angry here, a lot of Republicans are angry. Well, not the base. You might be referring to the Republican lawmakers who
Sue Fairwolf says Adderall. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. I'm not sure. The drug he's on makes his mouth water. Wait, Adderall makes your mouth water? Dentures and medication? Oh, I mean, I hope my teeth are in place, Omar. Do I sound normal? It's a relative question, right? But yeah, relative to Trump, I would say so. I would hope so.
Thomas Massey referenced their donors recently and has basically said that that is who is being protected here. Political donors and wealthy, connected people who have associations with Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh yeah, I heard that, Lord Ronnie. Clinton seems unbothered. He wants the rest of the files released, which is kind of wild because it's not looking good for Bill Clinton either. Maybe he just wants it over with. I don't know. Maybe the drip drop of more Clinton pictures is just driving him nuts. And he just, but yeah, no, Clinton is acting like the Lord of the Files, right? He's like, bring out the files. I don't know, chat. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be good for Clinton, and I don't think it's going to be good for Trump.
That don't want this to come out. And Trump is expressing sympathy, as he does, with the wealthy and the powerful, because that's literally all he's known since he came out of the womb with, a golden spoon in his mouth. And he is the oligarch identifier. That is who he is. He does not care about regular people. And it's the greatest fraud that he's perpetrated, that he has convinced certain people that he does.
Kelly Voicer X says, I'm on Adderall and I don't foam. Yeah, I don't know if foaming, but isn't foaming more of like isn't that more of like a rabies symptom than a Adderall side effect? Does Trump have rabies? I feel like if Trump got bit by a zombie, he wouldn't tell us, right? He would deny it, even when it became completely obvious. And somehow we'd be expected to treat this zombie as if he was actually the president and not a bloodthirsty, brain-eating, undead ghoul, right? We'd be expected to be like, oh no, Mr. President says that he needs to eat my brain. So here, right? It would be normalized. A zombie president, I feel like in this media atmosphere, would somehow be normalized.
Sargon acting like he's a working class tribune. He's like literally saying it's the powerful bankers and lawyers.
Highly respected people like bankers.
Think of the reputations of the bankers and the lawyers that just happened. They had nothing to do with him except they're in pictures with him at parties.
Also, and presidents like me. I just thought it was amazing that he expressed sympathy for Bill Clinton because they're in the same boat. Do you remember a few months ago when Hillary Clinton was praising Donald Trump? It might have been on.
Okay, how about this, chat? How about this? Trump agrees to leave the presidency. We do a presidential election in 2026 along with the congressional election and choose a new president. And we get, and chat, for those of you that are already disagreeing with me, this is the good part. All right, we get a reality show of Trump and Bill Clinton. You know what I mean? Put him in an extreme situation. Put him in a series of extreme situations. I want to see Trump and Clinton explore Antarctica. I want to see Trump and Clinton, do some deep sea diving, and you're like with the what is the fish called that has the light over its head? The deep sea what is it called? Is it deep sea angler? Is that what that anglerfish? Yeah, like they'd run into anglerfish and stuff. Maybe we could get Biden. Oh no, probably Biden would die. Biden couldn't be, but yeah. But no, here's what I'm saying. I feel like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, they're made for each other. They're made to go together, chat. Donald Trump, let's be real, started off as a reality show. And as a reality show, it was great. It was horrible. Like, you felt horrible about watching it. It was a guilty pleasure, but it was really fucking cool. And I would love to somehow get him back in that box of doing reality TV. This is the one thing he was good at, chat. His whole life, right? Everything he did was a fuck up. Developing real estate in New York, he fucked it up. Running a casino in Atlantic City, he fucked it up. But that show, The Apprentice, right? That was gold. That's got to be up there as like the top, one of the top two, right? It would be The Apprentice and Survivor, right? Top two reality shows of all time. Am I wrong? And I just want to get these two together, these two lolcows. Get Keemstar. We'll do lolcow. That'll be one of the extreme situations that we put them through. They have to appear on lolcow live with Keemstar, right? And they fight. They don't get along super well, right? They bop each other on the head like they were the Three Stooges. They do wacky physical comedy because they're two old men that just don't give a fuck. And I think that's beautiful, chat. I think that's what we need. I think that's what would heal the country. We could come together despite our political beliefs. We all love laughing at Clinton and Trump. They are hilarious fools, and they belong on television permanently. That's the sentence that they should get at The Hague, right? Everything you've done, you are now, we're gonna Truman show you. Anyway, Chad, just some thoughts. Let's get back to the story.
Policy or something to that effect. And I remember thinking at the time with this Epstein thing bubbling, I wonder if there are, like, she is making efforts despite, like,
little detente.
Right. I mean, God, the way that you see powerful people kowtow to Trump when they can when they need something from him. I mean, the infamous one is Ted Cruz after Trump called his wife ugly and did a side-by-side post of her and Melania and said his dad killed JFK. Just a few months later, he was Mr. Cuckboy doing phone banking for Donald Trump. Yeah. To have that be full circle with the Clintons after everything he said about Hillary Clinton.
We should have some mechanism in politics where we can choose to move certain politicians from politics to entertainment, right? We're like, I would like to take Ted Cruz, this man, I would like to take his hands off the wheels of power, and I would like to put him on television and force him to interact with a cast of wacky characters. I would like to have that option. I feel like that it's not true democracy, chat, if you can't turn your politicians into reality shows.
And how vicious that campaign was and felt at the time. Well, look at this. Now he's praising Bill Clinton, or at the very least saying he doesn't feel good about seeing these images out there because he sees himself in him. Like, he's genuinely empathizing for maybe the only time in his life.
They got caught for literally the same thing.
Because they were in the same boat of being like elite associates of Jeffrey Epstein. Like, God, I really feel bad for him.
Yeah, it's like we had nothing to do with him. What is
in a boat, chat? Make them sail across the Pacific and the Atlantic. Make them sail the 7 seas. Put them in a small sailboat. Force them to cooperate in order to stay alive. That's good television, right? That would bring back, you know, an industry.
Does Jeffrey keep pictures of you all like splashed all over his desk?
Yes. I mean, and that you resaw, I'm sure, in the release of the files, that blue dress painting that you talk about all the time. For people that don't know, Jeffrey Epstein had an image of Bill Clinton in the blue dress, the infamous one from the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which, by the way, Bill Clinton completely was a horrific.
Oh my God.
Horrific to Lewinsky.
Nadia, you won't believe what you got modded for. Like, somehow it saw in Clinton, the word into exists, and somehow into is an objectionable word to automod.
Bill Clinton was always a liability as regards to his libido.
And you can read some of what Ryan Grimm has reported, that it appears that Israeli intelligence
wanted to
knew
follow up
about
on that.
Lewinsky
How did they
prior to it coming out. You wonder.
Who maybe told them? Was it maybe
Like, it saw pussy and into and thought you were saying something inappropriate.
maybe a close associate of Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, who of course Bill Clinton would talk about? Do you think they would? Oh yeah, I'm not going to mention I'm screwing my intern to the guy that I hang out with and like swim around underground
Or
pools
mention
with,
it, or
redacted.
Or we know that Israel spies on the United States.
But I'm saying like that could have been the spy, Epstein himself.
Exactly.
right?
Right. True. True.
And he's and also he's given up the game as regards to their little strategy with like the get all the pictures out there of the celebrities from the 90s.
Yeah.
He's just acknowledging that, like, well, you get all these people with innocence. So what he's saying is that my people decided to look for all these different pictures of people that happen to be there, and put those up front, to make sure that people get that message, like, oh, this is just people with Epstein's things. No, there is evidence of a vast criminal network here.
100%. And your point always has been about that blue dress painting, that is like an example of him kind of flexing on the leverage that he has over the president of the United States.
Yeah, the message I got from this was like, he was saying, I own this guy.
Whew. Dark stuff here, folks.
Or maybe even if you want to go darker, he is my Monica. Which, if you remember what Bill Clinton did to Monica Lewinsky's life and reputation to save his own, that it says something, right? It says something that he owns Bill Clinton in the dress. Was that Monica Lewinsky's dress? Is that am I getting that right? The blue dress is a reference to the fabled Oval Office blowjob that somehow involved a cigar? I don't even want to know what the cigar was doing.
A word from some of our sponsors here. This New Year, it's coming up, and I know a lot of people have some New Year's resolutions. You keep some.
Okay, that is definitely an ad read.
Easy to keep. HelloFresh makes it super easy.
Okay, so oh shit, it goes on to the Barry Weiss thing. Okay, so that is actually all I wanted to cover from Majority Report.
We are now 314 days away from the midterm.
Who is this? Stephanie Rule.
And today, another batch of Epstein documents, roughly 30,000 records, well, they were released. That is the most we have gotten.
I pride myself on knowing, traditional media. I'm eating breakfast. I'm eating whatever meal this is. Post lunch, pre-dinner, something.
So far, one email claimed that flight logs showed Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's jet at least 8 times during the 1990s. That directly contradicts Trump's insistence on social media back in 2024 that he was never on the plane. And this release came with a caveat from the Department of Justice about multiple references to Trump, saying the following, quote, some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. I'll just say, how would the Department of Justice know if something would have been weaponized against the president? That seems like an opinion. We've also learned that as of 2019, the FBI was looking for at least 10 co-conspirators. All of the names were redacted except 3. Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted of sex trafficking in 2021. Jean-Luc Brunel, a former French modeling agent who was found dead in 2022, who is suspected of scouting girls for Epstein. And Les Wexner, the retail magnate behind The Limited and Victoria's Secret. His lawyer said he was not a target of the federal investigation or considered a co-conspirator. Now, Senate Schumer is calling on the DOJ in part to, quote, shed light on who was on that list, how they were involved, and why they chose not to prosecute, end quote. On the House side, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Robert Garcia.
Oh my God, chat. I just realized, I think I lied to you. I told you that I didn't think there was or I didn't know of a connection between Epstein and Israel, Mossad, right? We've got also a drop site article to look at that is about Iran-Contra, but let me just, looks like a fairly short video here from drop site. This is Ryan Grimm's, I don't know, what do you call drop site, right? It's a group of independent journalists, and they get a lot of scoops. They break a lot of stories, right? This is that kind of news. So this one is called Jeffrey Epstein, Israel's freelance diplomat. Or I don't know, this is Amy Goodman. I don't know. Let's try drop sites.
To the Epstein Files, which is a new series that my colleague Murtaza and Ryan Grimm have been publishing at Dropsite News, dropsitenews.com. It's based on a trove of leaked emails from the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And this is a set of emails that is publicly available. It was leaked by Handala, which is a pro-Palestinian hacking group. And the documents were posted online by Distributed Denial of Secrets, which is a whistleblower and file-sharing website. And they have been largely ignored by the mainstream press. These are publicly available emails. Maz, you and Ryan have been just really digging into these emails. We just published the latest in the series this morning of the Epstein Files about an Israeli military intelligence officer who stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment on at least 3 occasions. But can you first explain what these emails are, what they contain, and take us through some of your reporting, starting with whichever one you want, maybe the latest one we published this morning.
Yeah, so just before we went live, we published a story, the latest in the series you mentioned, about Epstein, based on a combination of emails from the Handala archive from former Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister Ehud Barak. But the documents are also based on House Oversight Committee disclosures about Epstein, because currently there is a dispute in the U.S. government about releasing what they describe as the Epstein files. Some of those files, and a very limited number, are public. So this story is actually based on both. And what it shows is that an Israeli military intelligence officer, a very senior Israeli military intelligence officer, a very well-known one, actually lived at Epstein's house in Manhattan on multiple occasions between 2013 and 2015, perhaps before that as well, too, but this is the documents we have. And he was living there. And he was engaging in transactions with Epstein and Barak. We don't know the full scope of what he was doing at that time, but he was still, among other things, acting as an intermediary between Israeli military intelligence and Barak, even though he left the defense ministry officially at that time, and also acting as an intermediary between Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence. He was very close to people close to former Secretary Leon Panetta, others in the U.S. intelligence establishment. So he was very much active. And one thing in the intelligence world, there are very few people, especially at that level, who ever really leave their position. He was doing intelligence work for Israel. He was a very well-known agent, and he stayed in Epstein's apartment on 66th Street in Manhattan. So, that's the latest story. Previously, we've done 3 other stories based on this archive. All of them deal with Epstein's activities on behalf of Israeli intelligence in different parts of the world. We did one story about his work setting up an Israeli security agreement or laying the groundwork for an agreement in Mongolia. Another one showing that Epstein was acting as setting up back channels between Israel and the Russian government. He had close ties both to Israel and Russia, individuals in both those systems. And then finally, a story about his work in Cote d'Ivoire, or him and Barak working to lay the groundwork. And Epstein was actually negotiating, it seems like, on behalf of the Israeli government with the Ivorian government, again, to set up security deals and set up the sale of Israeli security and surveillance technology to the Cote d'Ivoire government. So Epstein was somebody who was, he seemed to be effectively a freelance diplomat or agent acting on behalf of Israeli interests. And this was coming in the context of his relationship with Barak. It's pretty well known he had a relationship with Barak. It's kind of been reported, but the details of what they were doing has never really been dug into in great detail. And what I think we see from the emails is that, Epstein was helping Barack make money when he left public service, as is often the case in the U.S. and European and Israeli public life. People who are very powerful public figures try to go make money in the private sector after. Epstein was helping Barack do that. But in doing so, he was also helping him promote Israeli intelligence-linked security firms and technology firms to foreign governments. So it accomplished a dual purpose. It helped make money, and it helped further Israel's security interests, in many cases leading to formal security agreements signed between the Israeli government and foreign governments in that manner. So Epstein was really at the core of all this. And, everything we know about Epstein, he's been reported in the press, obviously his horrifying sex crimes he was involved in and so forth. What's really not been reported is who he was and what he was doing. He was an extremely important node in this world of intelligence contacts and elite contacts. And he was very invested in the security interests and well-being of Israel. And he acted on that basis through his relationship with Barack and beyond that as well.
For someone who's unfamiliar with Epstein, with these connections, was this an ideological kind of drive for him to be, as you said, like a freelance diplomat for Israel and someone who could connect different people to each other? Or was it based on just financial interests? What's your sense from reading these emails? And also, if you can go through, I know a lot of these are very complicated connections with lots of different moving parts, but one of your pieces showing how Epstein and Barack were working to engineer a Russia-led solution to remove Bashar al-Assad in Syria.
Yeah, so it's interesting because our understanding of the story continues to evolve the more that we dig into the files and the more public disclosures gradually come out about Epstein. Obviously, there's a big deadlock in the U.S. government about doing more disclosures. And our stories are partly based on things that the government's released or that have come out in lawsuits. There's still so much to know about this. But, provisionally...
Okay, so I just let this run because there's so much information here. And there's so much going on with Epstein on the intelligence front. And I just want to kind of point out something, right? This feels kind of like a breakthrough, right? This isn't information that we usually get, information, regarding, intelligence activities, but it actually is, we do get it from time to time. There was the Church Commission in the 70s. There was, there have been, what I want to point out though is that the shit that we're hearing about intelligence doing, the way that they're working, and the people that they're working with, right, in like the 90s or 2000s or whatever, it's moved on since then. So they're kind of always like one step ahead. But just remember, they're out there. There's like the people that did the dirty war in Laos, or that organization is still there. And although we know a lot about what happened during the Vietnam War, we don't necessarily, it's like what exactly is going on right now, right? 1992 Gladio exposure, yeah, we're pretty major. Although it's huge to understand. But yeah, we're always getting it like after the fact,
It's very interesting when you look at the emails. People always ask me, is Epstein a Mossad agent? That's a question which has been circling around a lot for many years. My impression is that no, he probably was not a Mossad agent per se. He was somebody who appeared to, let me put it this way, in his relationship with Barack, you can see from the emails that the power dynamic, even though Barack was extremely influential, one of the most influential people in the Israeli security establishment at that time, the power dynamic is very favorable to Epstein. It's not like Epstein is dying to get Barack's attention. It's really, if anything, vice versa. Epstein was somebody who had far more contacts in governments and the business world at the highest levels around the world than I think any one person can organically have. How he developed those contacts, I think, is something we still need to learn over time. But really, it was Barack who was trying to leverage Epstein for his own benefit. He wanted to help make money. He wanted to help promote Israeli security interests. And Epstein was there to do that. regarding Epstein's own motives, I think that in the emails, and again, this is a fraction of all the communications Epstein engaged in with everybody over this time. It's just his ties with Barack, with whom he's very close. But he definitely is very sympathetic to the Israeli security interests. He's very sympathetic. You can see it in his what things he's proposing, the things he's helping Barack do, his own commentary on events. He's trying to help further Israeli political and geopolitical interests around the world. And the context we referred to, the Syria talks, Epstein was specifically helping to organize a back channel between Israeli officials and Russian officials to remove Bashar al-Assad for the benefit of Israel, as he saw it in that time, because the war at that time, 2013, was getting out of hand from Israel's perspective. They were concerned about spillover. They didn't want democracy to come about in Syria, per se. They wanted, their proposal was that a Russian-backed dictator would come to power instead, and Assad would go aside and the war would end on that basis. So that was the nature of the back channel. And as I mentioned, Epstein had very close ties with not just Israeli elites, but Russian elites and elites of other countries, including the US, of course, as well, too. So that was his interest. And also, just to add another point of that, just to get a sense of his views, he also was very much hoping that the US would bomb Iran at that time. And he was hoping that following, the conflict between US and Syria that they hope would come about, maybe at least briefly, that the Congress would then authorize U.S. attacks against Iran. So he was very much in line with the hawkish Israeli segment of the political establishment, on top of what other views or activities he may have engaged in.
Murtaza Hussein, I guess, has been on Majority Report as well. All right, so I wanted to is this like a more direct? I hate these videos with like music and text. I've seen worked with Israeli intelligence-linked firms, made crucial introductions. We'll see more about this picture later. Israel intelligence leaders now shape security apparatus in several African countries. Epstein helped lay the groundwork for a deal to help flood Cote d'Ivoire with Israeli surveillance tech. Today, Ouattara continues to enjoy the support of Israeli security firms to help him maintain power. His Israeli-backed police state has squashed civic organizations and silenced critics. This is another story by Dropsite that exposes Epstein's secret links with the Cote d'Ivoire. So I don't even know about what happened in Cote d'Ivoire. Trying to show you Epstein's ties to the Iran-Contra era of intelligence. A more recent video of theirs. So yeah, it's one of these videos where they've got like an AI voice reading it, which is probably better than like it's a long article, so we will utilize their pre-recorded voice here. But I also want to bring up the article from Dropsite. It's wait. Oh yeah, this one. It's a really long article. I think the only way that we're going to get through it is to have it open here, have the voice read it, and then I'll pause occasionally. Here we go.
Landed at Les Wexner's base. Dropsite News presents Epstein, Israel, and the CIA. How the Iran-Contra planes landed at Les Wexner's base. When a Southern Air Transport plane was shot down over Nicaragua in October 1986, the world got a rare window into US government covert activity. Southern Air Transport was a small cargo airline founded in 1947. That was the year the Central Intelligence Agency was created, as the US pivoted to a Cold War posture. The CIA owned the airline from 1960 until 1973. Then, it was sold to Stanley G. Williams, the chief operating officer, who ran private missions for the CIA. The downing of the Southern Air cargo plane pulled a string that eventually unraveled the scandal known as Iran-Contra. The CIA was shipping weapons to Iran, using Israel as a middleman. The profits from the arms were used to fund the Contra rebel army in Nicaragua in a civil war against the leftist government. None of it was legal, and Southern Air Transport was getting too hot. In need of a new mission, the company relocated its headquarters from Miami, Florida, to Columbus, Ohio. The company rebranded by flying imported shipments of clothing from China. But for 3 years in Columbus, the airline was rumored to be involved in smuggling cocaine. According to veteran Columbus journalist Bob Fitrakis, investigators in the Franklin County Sheriff's Office and Ohio's Office of Inspector General were looking into Southern Air Transport amid rising public scrutiny of the Iran-Contra affair. Sources in both offices identified Jeffrey Epstein as having a pivotal role in moving the planes to Ohio. At the time, Epstein was a relatively obscure financier managing the money of Ohio-based fashion mogul Leslie Wexner. Under Epstein's stewardship of the Wexner Empire, the planes that previously carried the CIA's covert weapons shipments were repurposed to deliver clothes to Wexner's retail chains, including Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie and Fitch.
So,
Southern Air
the planes that delivered the arms to the Contras are the planes that Epstein is now moving to Ohio.
Air Transport abruptly declared bankruptcy on October 1st, 1998, exactly 1 week before the CIA released its official findings on the Iran-Contra affair, which surfaced all the allegations of Contra cocaine trafficking from Nicaragua. Under pressure from the governor's office, Ohio officials dropped their inquiries, meaning that Epstein's role never became public. How did Epstein end up moving the former Contra planes to Columbus? The Iran-Contra scandal defined the second half of the Reagan administration, and it gave the public a clear look inside the US government's clandestine global operations. Like a spy service Forrest Gump, Jeffrey Epstein can be found there every leg of the way.
Horrible writing, but you get the point, right? That Epstein's all over this thing. In other words, he seems to be very connected to the clandestine activities of the security state in in this Iran-Contra era.
Part 1. Finding hidden money. In 1981, Jeffrey Epstein resigned from Bear Stearns amid suspicions of insider trading. He began traveling regularly to London, where he grew close with the family of Douglas Leese, a British businessman with a long career in the aerospace industry. Epstein became Leese's protégé and fast friends with his sons Nicholas and Julian. After World War II, Leese was put in charge of his father's company, Cam Gears, a steering gear manufacturer that supplied Jaguar, Ford, Nissan, and other global auto brands. In 1965, the company was sold to TRW, a US aerospace conglomerate known for satellites and intercontinental ballistic missiles. 1979 was a revolutionary year in the Persian Gulf. Saddam Hussein became president of Iraq and swiftly executed and imprisoned his political rivals. Across Iraq's eastern border, the people of Iran overthrew the puppet monarchy the CIA had installed after World War II. During Iran's revolution, university students seized the US embassy in Tehran and took Americans as hostages, leading the US to impose harsh economic and military sanctions on Ayatollah Khomeini's regime. The CIA planned to fuel a war between Iran and Iraq to ensure neither Hussein nor Khomeini could gain control of the Strait of Hormuz and keep the Soviet Navy out of the Gulf. But the hostage crisis added a wrinkle to their plans. The US was prohibited from selling weapons to Iran, as it would violate the arms embargo and undermine President Ronald Reagan's public position that America did not bargain with terrorists. Instead, the CIA tacitly supported weapons sales from China, and Beijing began shipping armaments to both Iran and Iraq in 1980. In spring 1983, Iran signed a $1.3 billion arms deal with China. These weapons were supplied in part by Chinese manufacturing conglomerate Norinco, using British Hong Kong as the transshipment point. Epstein's British mentor.
Just quick historical notes for people that don't know. The U.S. enacted a coup on Iran's government, replacing their Mossadegh with the Shah, right? A leader that Iranians did not, was imposed on them, basically. So the Iranian Revolution was to overthrow that puppet governor that was there essentially to ensure U.S. oil interests in the area. That was the reason that they wanted to change the government. So, this is where the hostility between Iran and the United States started, and hostages were taken, and that kind of starts off the whole chain of events that we call Iran-Contra. And then when they say British Hong Kong, Hong Kong used to be officially part of the United Kingdom. They made some kind of treaty with China where they reverted control of Hong Kong to China sometime like in the 90s, maybe. And so that's what that means. Anyway.
Douglas Lease owned a company called LORAD, based in Bermuda. Soon after the Iran arms deal was signed, a shell company called Norinco LORAD was formed.
Directive says same shit they tried to pull in Afghanistan with Karzai, same shit they tried to pull in Vietnam.
In Bermuda. A Hong Kong trading company called LORAD Far East followed a few months later. Lease's exact role in China's weapons sales has never been made public. But in 1995, a British MP alleged Lease had secretly funded Middle East arms deals using a Bermuda bank.
It's a 90-year deal with Britain, between Britain and this was basically the what's referred to as the Chinese century of humiliation, where a lot of China ended up on the bad end of a lot of deals from a lot of countries.
That year, the owners of British retail chain Littlewoods raised alarm bells about Lease's arms trafficking ties. As they were working with LORAD to ship manufactured goods from China, they received a proposal for Norinco to sell washing machines to Littlewoods and weapons to LORAD. 2 years later, in a US civil complaint against the Littlewoods owners, Lease claimed his work concerned highly sensitive projects, believed to be classified by the Department of Defense and other agencies of the United States government. Meanwhile, the CIA prepared its own covert pipeline to ship American-made weapons to Iran. In fall 1980, the FBI placed Cyrus Hashemi, an Iranian banker, under extensive electronic surveillance, recording tens of thousands of conversations over a 5-month span. The tapes revealed that John Stanley Pottinger, Hashemi's attorney, was helping the Iranians circumvent the arms embargo using phony invoices and overseas shell companies.
David Turk says not quite correct on Hong Kong facts. Might want to do a little research. David, I am reading chat, as I am with your statement as well.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee later found that the CIA...
The point is that she said, AI voice said British Hong Kong for that reason, that Hong Kong at this time was, controlled by the UK.
Was involved in planning the arms deals.
If I was going to do an extensive stream on the history of Hong Kong, though, you would be right, which might be really interesting. Unfortunately for you, though, that's not this stream.
Met with Hashemi.
This one's about Epstein.
In Pottinger's office.
Pottinger, it turns out, was working together with Epstein in New York. Pottinger had previously served as an assistant attorney general under President Richard Nixon. Now he joined up with another crook, and the two men rented a penthouse office together on Central Park South, according to the New York Times. The Times reported that Pottinger and Epstein were pitching tax avoidance strategies for wealthy clients. The business partnership was short-lived. In 1984, Pottinger was identified in a federal indictment against Hashemi for illegal arms exports, and Hashemi fled to England.
Pottinger escaped prosecution after the incriminating FBI tapes of his conversations mysteriously disappeared. He went on to make a fortune on real estate deals in the 1980s and became a New York Times best-selling novelist. He died last year, and his Times obit reports that his final spy thriller remains unpublished. Hashemi died in 1986 after being infected with a rare form of leukemia that was diagnosed only 2 days earlier.
And chat, that's why you don't write a spy thriller about your experience, working for intelligence organizations. That's wild. Isn't that the same thing that Vladimir Putin's opponents keep dying of?
His death was later alleged to be foul play. After Hashemi's indictment, another player stepped in to broker access to Iran for the Americans. Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi, uncle of slain Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. In July 1985, Hashemi, Khashoggi, and Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres had met secretly in Hamburg, West Germany, to hatch a plot. With CIA Director William Casey's blessing, the US would ship the weapons to Israel. Israel would sell its own weapons to Iran, and Washington would commit to replenishing Israel's stockpile later. Epstein obtained an Austrian passport with a false name and an address in Saudi Arabia at some time in the 1980s.
After his arrest in 2019, US authorities discovered it in a safe in his New York mansion. At a bail request hearing, Epstein's attorneys claimed the fake passport came from a friend intended to conceal his Jewish identity in case of a potential kidnapping while traveling.
7 Americans, including a CIA officer, were kidnapped in Lebanon between 1984 and 1985, and discussions emerged around an arms for hostages trade with Iran. After Peres agreed to facilitate Khashoggi's shipments to Iran, the logistics were handled by Israeli military intelligence.
Epstein's close friend and confidant, Ehud Barak, was the head of Israel's Military Intelligence Directorate from April 1983 to September 1985. He left the position 1 month after the first arms shipment was completed. To this day, Barak maintains that he was introduced to Epstein by Shimon Peres at a public event in 2003, after he left government service. Barak has also falsely claimed that he barely knew Epstein. Whether they truly met before 2003 is unknown.
The Israeli arms pipeline depended on a fragile trust. The Israelis wanted cash up front, but the Iranians would only pay after the weapons were delivered.
Using accounts at the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, Khashoggi advanced.
And before anybody asks, this is not the Khashoggi who was cut into pieces with a bone saw at a Saudi embassy as he went in to try to get his marriage papers, right? This is his father. This is, I think, right, as we were talking about here. I think they're going to fill in the details about the history of it all, the Iran-Contra of it all.
Tens of millions of dollars in credit so that weapons could move even when the parties did not trust each other. Gaith Farone, a Stanford-educated businessman close to the Saudi royal family, acquired regional banks and distressed insurance companies in the US to loop BCCI into US financial markets. The CIA shielded BCCI from federal investigators to conceal the money trail to their illicit arms deals. BCCI operated as a Cayman Islands entity structured as a charitable trust, funneling capital into employee benefit funds and philanthropic foundations in the UK and South Asia, which in turn owned a plethora of shell companies. The shells served as parking lots for BCCI assets and conduits for transactions that needed to be hidden from the balance sheets of the bank's local branches around the world. With each successful delivery, an American hostage was freed in Lebanon, and the intermediaries received generous commission payments. Once arms profits had been cycled through BCCI's network, real estate was a method of transforming suspicious cash flows into legitimate sales and rental income, while obscuring the true ownership behind layers of shells. BCCI was heavily involved in real estate lending and property purchases through shells and nominees. Khashoggi himself had massive real estate holdings worldwide, including hotels, ranches, mansions, and commercial properties. Decades before Epstein became a household name, former Israeli intelligence officer Ari Ben-Menashe wrote a memoir about the Iran-Contra era. Ben-Menashe reported that Ehud Barak feared Israeli politicians or the Americans would discover the slush fund bank accounts where the arms profits were hidden and take the money for themselves. Ben-Menashe claimed that Barak arranged for media mogul Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, to launder the Iran weapons profits through his company's accounts and hide the money in Soviet banks where they could not be touched by the Americans. In 1991, 4 years after Iran-Contra, Maxwell disappeared from his 180-foot yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, while it cruised off the Canary Islands. Hours later, Spanish authorities recovered his body from the Atlantic. Maxwell's media empire was collapsing under a mountain of debt, and he was secretly siphoning hundreds of millions of pounds from his company's pension funds. When investigators began untangling the books after his death, they found nearly £500 million missing, and possibly more. An email obtained from Epstein's Yahoo inbox dated October 15, 2005, suggests Ghislaine Maxwell was trying to purchase information about her father's missing fortune from a CIA operative. Maxwell emailed Epstein excitedly while visiting Bhutan for the wedding of Princess Chimi Yangzom Wangchuk. She wrote, "The wedding was amazing. Also, I was with a CIA operative who said that he worked with Dad. I was so shocked. He said he could tell all, find all and reveal all, for a price." Epstein often made vague boasts about being a financial bounty hunter who tracked down hidden money. In 1987, while
Okay, so yeah, I told you I was going to try to get us to the bottom, both of the intelligence connection. That's coming up later. This is all like pre-story, just kind of giving you a sense of, you know, what the Iran-Contra affair looked like in reality. This, clandestine program that was only revealed, I think, after a plane crash. Anyway, we're gonna get to all that, but yeah, where does his money come from? Well, Wexner, right? First of all, and we're gonna get to him in a little bit, but maybe from this financial bounty hunting activity. It sounds like he is one of these fixers that, the CIA would have used to as like go-betweens, maybe in the same way that Robert Maxwell is functioning here. You can see Robert Maxwell is dirty as fuck, and then winds up mysteriously dead. Again, like there's some patterns. There's some patterns, and I don't think I have to point them out, right? A lot of people turning up dead in mysterious circumstances. And 19. Okay, anyway, let me get back. I forgot I don't have to read this part. It's a break for my voice.
Maxwell was allegedly hiding money from arms deals. Epstein bragged to a journalist about finding money for Adnan Khashoggi in such detail, the journalist thought Epstein might be in the business of hiding it as well as finding it.
Wait, a guy with look, just in England, I don't know what you're going off on here, but no, this is Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. We're talking about Robert Maxwell? Yeah, that's the direction is a little, I don't know what kind of connection you were trying to draw there, but yeah, the connection is this is Ghislaine's dad. And yeah, kind of seems to be involved in maybe the same business as Epstein was. Again, this is the part that's mysterious, right? Where did Epstein's money come from is a question that we don't exactly have all the answers to. Yeah, I'll put together what I can today, but we're still looking into this. Hey, what is this? Albert Cumberbatch Klein exposed in flight logs? You're waiting to see Ethan Klein on the Lolita Express?
Logistics man.
Do you think that Epstein was hitting the vape 6000 or whatever that giant vape that Ethan used to carry around was?
When the Southern Air Transport plane was shot down over Nicaragua in October 1986, the Iran-Contra
Epstein is vape nation.
Scheme began to unravel. After he was captured, the lone survivor confessed in a conference before the world's press that he was working with the CIA to ferry weapons to the Contras, secretly backing their war against Nicaragua's leftist government. US officials quickly denied the confession.
Okay, so yeah, we wouldn't know anything about Iran-Contra, right? This whole thing that went out. And the part that they didn't talk about was the discouragement, the conversations, I guess, between Nixon's people and the Iranians prior to, I'm getting it mixed up, chat, with something that happened in the Vietnam War here. That's how cyclical this shit is, right? It's kind of like always the same thing. But anyway, we're talking about the 80s. Let's keep this straight. And, Jimmy Carter is president. There is a hostage crisis. And despite his best efforts, President Jimmy Carter unable to get those hostages back, right? Behind the scenes, there's a conversation between Nixon's people and the Iranians, right? To, keep those hostages from getting released because, you were going to, get something out of it if you did. And, then that something manifests as the arms for hostages deal, right? Expedited by Israel. And so now I say that not to tell you that like Epstein is like involved in Iran-Contra, although I guess I can't say for sure that he's not. But that's the planes that's where these planes are coming from that we're gonna talk about Epstein moving these planes to Ohio, right? So we're this is the connection to Iran-Contra, not that he was part of it, but he seems to have benefited.
But now there are freaking communists invading radicals.
And honestly, we got to ask ourselves, right? When he says finding lost money or like a bounty, what did he call a bounty hunter for money or something like that? Right? That might be some kind of clandestine activity. That might be something he is doing for one or more intelligence service. Anyway, logistics man. Wait, where did they say? Yeah, there it is. A financial bounty hunter who tracked down hidden money. Right. So, you know, maybe this is I don't know what this is, like doing a kind of a contract work for intelligence. Maybe he's not, you know, employed by any of the intelligence services, but he's, yeah, some kind of asset, some kind of functionary doing, you know, a job, because it sounds like this is very indirect on purpose to keep Ronald Reagan's lily white hands clean, because very likely otherwise his fingerprints would be all over it, right? So, you know, maintain plausible deniability so Reagan in his later years can say, I don't recollect about literally every Iran-Contra question, right? This is a real scandal that, you know, went on, and yeah, we wouldn't know about it except for this plane crash that happened in Nicaragua. This is Eugene Hasenfuss.
Saying the plane was on a private mission. But Southern Air Transport was not only shipping weapons to the Contras, the planes were also carrying weapons to Israel to fuel the brutal war between Iran and Iraq. Just weeks after Hasenfuss's press conference, the airline flew its last Iran-Contra mission from Tel Aviv to Tehran, carrying 500 US-made anti-tank missiles. 1 month later, a Lebanese newspaper broke the story that the Iran arms sales were part of a secret deal in exchange for the release of Americans taken hostage in Lebanon. US officials confirmed the reports, spurring an investigation by the Justice Department. The US Attorney General was forced to step in front of news cameras and acknowledge that profits from the Iran shipments were secretly fueling the Contras. Then, newspapers started making the connection that the same planes were smuggling cocaine from Nicaragua and Colombia into the United States. The story became a major political scandal in the US. In December 1986, reports emerged that Khashoggi received tens of millions of dollars for brokering the deals. In January 1987, Khashoggi's US holding company filed for bankruptcy. BCCI's frontman, Gaith Faron, sold off his bank assets soon after.
Already confirmed in the article that Epstein was part of Iran-Contra. No, like, I don't think they specifically mentioned his role, if that's what you mean. I mean, the whole article is about his involvement in Iran-Contra, but I think that is, like, you know, after the, or at least what they're telling us so far is, you know, this is involvement after the revelation of that happened from the plane crash.
Meanwhile, the airline also began covering its tracks. Southern Air Transport, which was now flagged in DEA databases for suspected cocaine trafficking, pivoted to famine relief missions in war-torn countries in Africa for the United Nations. Within months, Epstein appeared to be absorbing lessons from the era's covert financial engineering. In 1987, as the Iran-Contra operation was unraveling, he emerged as a key financial advisor to retail and fashion kingpin Leslie Wexner. Epstein became an officer of several Wexner shell companies, while later leading the same family office that ran Wexner's philanthropic foundation. This was an architecture that, like BCCI, placed a charitable vehicle at the apex of a vast web of companies. That same year, Wexner established the New Albany Company, a massive real estate development project to build a new city in a rural area outside Columbus, Ohio.
I gotta ask chat, why is it always Florida and Ohio?
Later in 1987, Epstein reprised another BCCI tactic: sell a story to state regulators to gain control of a financial institution, then pillage its assets. Just as BCCI used Gaith Farron as a nominee to acquire insurance companies, Epstein helped Stephen Hoffenberg persuade Illinois regulators to approve the purchase of 2 ailing insurers by promising a $3 million capital injection from Hoffenberg's debt collection agency, Towers Financial. The money never arrived, of course. After closing the sale, they used the insurers' bonds as collateral to finance hostile takeovers of 2 struggling airline companies, Pan Am and Emery Worldwide. Towers Financial became a slush fund that subsidized Epstein's lavish lifestyle in New York. After it...
So there we go, right? This is at least part, I mean, they mentioned Wexner and him taking over for Wexner. But then, yeah, this is just, God, I mean, like, I wish I understood more about this, right? You know, buying companies and essentially burning them, to the ground and just, you know, subsisting off of the funds from that operation.
Collapsed in 1993, Hoffenberg pleaded guilty to defrauding investors out of nearly $500 million in what the SEC called the largest Ponzi scheme in US history at the time. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He later described Epstein as his co-conspirator, though Epstein was never charged. The stolen money, however, vanished. In 2002, Hoffenberg alleged that Epstein hid $100 million in offshore accounts. He knew Epstein worked with prosecutors to scapegoat him and other Towers financial executives. Epstein certainly did secretly cooperate against Hoffenberg and gave at least 3 interviews to prosecutors, Vicky Ward reported for Rolling Stone, adding that had the case gone to trial, a source with knowledge says it would have likely turned out far worse for Epstein than for Hoffenberg. In that 2002 interview, Hoffenberg also helped to piece together part of Epstein's past. He told Ward that he believed it was Douglas Leese who had introduced Epstein to Adnan Khashoggi. When Ward asked Epstein to respond to Hoffenberg's claims, Epstein said he didn't know Leese and furiously rejected any association with the Towers financial fraud. Epstein threatened to sue Ward if her story insinuated his culpability in the Ponzi scheme. And, when Vanity Fair attempted to revive the story in 2007, private messages in his Yahoo inbox show that Epstein drafted letters to Ward's editor, Grady.
Oh, okay. Yeah, these are the letters that were just in drafts, right? We do have the drafts. I guess the email got hacked. So, you know, we can see the drafts, but yeah, he didn't actually send these.
Railing against her peace and threatening again to sue for defamation. In drafts sent to himself by email, he wrote, "I am writing to you to give you the opportunity, while it still exists, to correct a wrong." Epstein may have been counseled against sending those emails. Carter told DropSite he never received them. One thing is clear. Epstein lied to Ward about his ties to the Leese family. He knew both of Douglas Leese's 2 sons very well. The elder brother, Nicholas, wrote a bawdy letter in Epstein's 50th birthday book, containing anecdotes of escapades in Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, and Tramp nightclub in London. The relationship between Epstein and the Leeses remained intimate over the years. According to the emails obtained by DropSite, Epstein was the godfather of Leese's granddaughter, and both brothers affectionately addressed Epstein in their emails as "my boy." In 2007, Julian Leese sent Epstein a collection of family photos, writing, "Always thinking of you and the old days." Julian Leese briefly worked as an intern at Towers Financial after graduating from University of Salford. He told journalist Tom Pattinson that his father had supported Towers Financial by introducing Hoffenberg to people in his circle. In his final recorded interview, Julian claimed his father sold radar equipment, not weapons, and admitted that Epstein occasionally advised his father and was present at some of his business meetings.
So there's another another answer for where did Epstein's money come from. Financial advice, right? That is his story, right? People that asked Epstein where he made his money, it was, as a financial advisor. And nobody really seems to have inquired much further.
In the early 1980s, he said Epstein and his father had a falling out over Epstein's reckless spending from one of his father's expense accounts. In light of Epstein's immediate pivot to working with shadowy Iran-Contra figures, Julian's interview raises more questions than it answers. Julian passed away in 2024. Part 3. Corruption all over the city and state. While the Towers financial Ponzi scheme was taking off, Epstein had risen to the status of chief financial advisor to Wexner's business empire, built around his clothing company The Limited, headquartered in Ohio. Epstein also became the financial engineer and trusted fixer behind Wexner's massive real estate development project in New Albany. By 1991, the New York Times described Epstein as president of Wexner Investment Company. Epstein's sudden rise baffled Wexner's old advisors, who were pushed out of Wexner's organization one by one. Although Epstein is sometimes described as a con artist who beguiled a naive billionaire, the series of events leading up to Epstein's takeover of Wexner's fortune paint a very different picture. In 1991, the Columbus Police Department was investigating the mob-style assassination of Arthur Shapiro, an attorney whose firm worked for The Limited. In March 1985, Shapiro was due to testify before a grand jury in a major tax evasion case. But the day before his testimony, he was shot twice in the head at point-blank range in his car outside a Columbus cemetery. Barry Kessler, an accountant, was considered the prime suspect in Shapiro's murder. He was later convicted for 2 unrelated murder-for-hire plots and sentenced to death.
I feel like we should be playing bingo with this shit, right? Like every time somebody gets murdered, I don't know, or a drinking game or something like that. Just like
death.
There's some patterns here, is what I'm saying. There's some patterns.
Another Columbus man sharing his last name, John Jack Kessler, was Wexner's partner in the New Albany Company, where Epstein became co-president. On June 6, 1991, a Columbus police analyst submitted an internal memo that suggested Wexner's business was connected to organized crime. The memo identified several Wexner corporate entities formed by the slain lawyer's office, some of which appeared to be linked to Wexner's New Albany property development. Epstein's name later appeared as an officer of some of these same companies when they were dissolved a few years later. In July 1991, 1 month after the Shapiro murder memo was circulated inside the Columbus Police Department, Wexner signed a document giving Epstein power of attorney to act on his behalf in all affairs, effectively handing Epstein personal control of his vast fortune.
And this isn't somebody that was stricken with a grave disease or a sudden onset disability, right? You understand what we're talking about here, right? Power of attorney in all his affairs. Yeah, it's not just like handing somebody like the control of a company or an asset or something like that. It is like, just basically giving someone the keys to like your entire life. That's what Wexner did. This is the guy that owned, what is it? The Limited, oh my God. The Victoria's Secret. He owns a whole bunch of Gap, a whole bunch of clothing companies. Very, very wealthy man. Anyway.
And the right to sign property transactions on Wexner's behalf. The Columbus police chief ordered the murder file destroyed. David Sturtz, Ohio's former inspector general, leaked a surviving copy of the Shapiro murder file to journalist Bob Fitrakis, who published it in July 1998. Meanwhile, Miami International Airport made plans to demolish the hangar where Southern Air Transport was suspected of smuggling cocaine, a former U.S. Army depot that had been used by the CIA for more than 20 years. With Epstein acting as Wexner's logistics man in Ohio, Southern Air Transport relocated its world headquarters to Columbus to deliver products from factories in Hong Kong and southern China directly to Wexner's network of limited brands stores. The Ohio Department of Development and Rickenbacker Port Authority assembled a generous incentive package to lure Southern Air Transport out of Miami. Rickenbacker, an Air National Guard base, was already a well-established military and intelligence hub when Wexner's company planned to turn it into a consumer airport. The Defense Logistics Agency, just 15 miles down the road, was in charge of the global supply chain for weapons systems. A decade earlier, CIA technicians had quietly met Louisiana smuggler Barry Seal at the same base. The CIA installed hidden cameras on Barry Seal's plane before sending him back to Nicaragua on a DEA sting. The state offered a $6 million low-interest loan and a $500,000 development grant, while the Department of Transportation agreed to pay $10 million for infrastructure upgrades. The Port Authority freed up $30 million in revenue bonds to be used by the project, and the county made the facilities 100% tax-exempt for 15 years. Bob Fitrakis told DropSite and the American Conservative, "While I was writing investigative articles for Columbus Alive, I found myself inundated with people leaking stories about corruption all over the city and state." Sturtz, the investigator who leaked the Shapiro murder file, spoke to Fitrakis specifically about Epstein. After that, he verbally gave me a lot of information about Wexner and Epstein's ties to organized crime and the intelligence community, Fitrakis said.
Anybody else feel like the AI voice's accent is like slowly changing over time?
That's how I learned about Southern Air Transport. The intrepid journalist contacted former Franklin County Sheriff Earl Smith to find out what he knew about Epstein. He learned that Smith's office was investigating drug smuggling at Rickenbacker in connection with the CIA's planes. He knew Epstein was the point person in soliciting Southern Air Transport to come to Ohio, Fitrakis said. Sturtz was dismissed from the Inspector General position in 1994, which he told Fitrakis he believed was connected to his inquiry into Wexner and Southern Air Transport. His successor also resigned after 2 months on the job. After moving to Columbus, the airline did not shed its drug smuggling pedigree. In 1996, customs agents discovered cocaine hidden aboard a Southern Air Transport plane, according to a report in an Alabama newspaper. The airline's public information officer told the paper the plane was delivering fresh flowers from a large,
The very freshest.
flower exporter in Colombia. The
Yeah.
airline asserted it was
Yeah, Colombian, nothing better than Colombian flowers.
not tied to the CIA and would like to know itself where the cocaine came from. By the time the Alabama incident hit newswires, the airline claimed the plane had a mercury contamination and handed the aircraft over to an insurance company. The Columbus...
So wait, they were gonna get busted and they literally faked a mercury contamination to just get rid of it?
Experiment ended 1 year later, as more of the airline's sordid smuggling history was dragged into public view. In June 1998, after it had already collected millions of dollars in state subsidies, Southern Air Transport decided to sell off its fleet of Lockheed Hercules planes. On October 1st, 1998...
So it kind of sounds like they operated for maybe, a lot longer than, you're right, than people think.
Southern Air Transport.
In some capacity, remember, this is the whole drug thing is not actually off-brand for the CIA, right? I believe that narcotics were part of their Lao operation in the dirty war that they conducted there, right? This is kind of par for the course of how the CIA funds things. So maybe this wasn't maybe they put maybe it was going to other places for other purposes, but when is it that the plane crash took place? I'm trying to remember. $1986, yeah. Yeah, they're still 10 years later, they're still cocaine on planes. So go figure.
Abruptly filed for bankruptcy. Exactly 1 week later, the CIA released its official findings on the Iran-Contra affair, publicly acknowledging the cocaine trafficking allegations.
Part 4. A photo with some African warlords.
Isn't that wild? Like, I mean, there have been times when the U.S. rose up and was not okay, with what the CIA and other clandestine national intelligence agencies were doing, right? And for at least a second demanded some kind of change. But isn't this wild? They admitted the crazy story. Oh yeah, they're funding it with cocaine. Like, no, but the CIA, that's like the government and stuff. They wouldn't do that. They would to keep it off the books, to keep it clandestine, to keep it from being known by the public until what, in this case, more than 10 years later, right? This is when they're admitting to the cocaine thing. So yeah, it does happen.
When Ghislaine Maxwell was interviewed by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche in July, she was asked whether Epstein ever had any contact with intelligence agencies. Maxwell gave a vague response about Epstein's business of finding money in Africa in the 1980s. I think he may have suggested that there was some people who helped him, Maxwell said. He showed me a photograph that he had with some African warlords or something. That's the only actual active memory I have of something nefarious. Not nefarious, but covert, I suppose would be the word. In parallel to Iran-Contra, from 1984 to 1986, Southern Air Transport flew hundreds of trips inside Angola, with some runs connecting the capital city Luanda to Dobbins Air Force Base in Marietta, Georgia. Angola's northeastern diamond mining towns, cut off by unsafe roads and railways, were largely accessible only by air. The airline obtained a lucrative contract from Angola's state-owned mining company to carry equipment to the mining towns and carry diamonds out. While making trips to the mines, the planes were suspected of airdropping weapons to the rebel group UNITA, with South Africa's support.
South Africa profited handsomely from the Angolan Civil War. Johannesburg became a booming re-export hub for illicit...
And again, history never quite repeats itself, but it often rhymes. We're, dealing with a similar dynamic going on in Sudan right now, with the UAE being the supplier in this case.
Angolan diamonds.
And gold being the what's extracted.
As UNITA controlled blood diamonds were under UN embargo and could not be exported legally from Angola. By the late 1990s, UNITA earned billions of dollars by smuggling diamonds to Johannesburg, where they re-exported with false certificates of origin and shipped onward to London and Belgium. A UN report estimated that over $1 million worth of diamonds was smuggled out of Angola per day in 2001.
Angola was the mirror image of Iran-Contra. As in Iran, Saudi money was the bank for Angola's war. As in Nicaragua, the diamonds, like the drugs, were fueled by an off-the-books arms trade. An associate of Saudi ruler King Fahd testified before Congress that Saudi aid to UNITA was part of an informal deal with Washington in exchange for access to mobile radar surveillance systems. He recounted being told that tens of millions of dollars had been funneled through Morocco to train UNITA fighters, and claimed Prince Bandar had planned to sell oil to South Africa.
So, yeah, this is a Saudi prince named Bandar. I don't know if is the name familiar to anyone. This is a prince who was quite close to the Bush family, as in George W., George H.W., Jeb, like that Bush family, right? To the point where they lovingly would refer to him as Bandar Bush, as part of the family.
The Saudi government has denied these claims. In Columbus...
And when we're talking about CIA ties, the father, H.W. Bush, president from, 1989 to 1993, that was his jam.
...of Southern Air Transport was written off as the result of financial troubles.
The character from American Dad is actually based on George H.W. Bush. Fun fact.
But before declaring bankruptcy in 1998, half of its fleet of Lockheed Hercules planes was sold to Transafrique, an Angolan airline based in the United Arab...
Wait, is Poppy Bush H.W. or is Poppy... Oh, yeah, you're right, it is. Oh, there was also the Prescott, the granddad with the Nazi ties.
Emirates. Southern Air Transport resumed its missions, supporting diamond mining operations, as Angola's civil war raged on.
Decades later, Epstein bragged to journalists about making his fortune out of arms, drugs, and diamonds. Epstein, for his part, only came to the attention of the international press after agreeing to ferry former President Bill Clinton around Africa in 2002 on his private jet. Speaking to Hoffenberg in prison that year, journalist Vicky Ward asked why a man who had thrived in the shadows would risk so much with such a public spectacle. He can't help himself. He broke his own rule, Hoffenberg said. He always said he knew the only way he could get away with everything he did was to stay under the radar, that now he's gone and blown it. Epstein's claim to have barely known Hoffenberg, and Wexner's attempts to personally distance himself from Epstein are undermined by the fact that both men knew Epstein's cardinal rule, a rule he was apparently preternaturally unable to follow. On June 30th, 2008, the Florida State Court accepted Epstein's guilty plea to state charges of...
So do you understand what he means by his golden rule, Epstein's rule being stay under the radar? The only way you can get away with it is to stay under the radar. Imagine this, all right? In every clandestine operation, there is a space which is... protected, right? It's what keeps it clandestine. And as long as Epstein can hide in the shadow of that space, that time outside of time, that space outside of space that the agency creates in order to hide it, to cloak its own activities, as long as Epstein can stay under that cloak, right? he's golden. Nobody sees what he's doing. The second that he gets cocky, and, you know, kind of drunk with power and kind of seeing how far he can push it. Right. And, you know, I mean, that explains a lot of how this was all hiding in plain sight. That explains the eyes wide shut of it all to a certain degree. Let's finish this up and then we'll get to bonus content.
Soliciting a minor for prostitution. 4 days before, Leslie Wexner sent his friend an email. Abigail told me the result. All I can say is, I feel sorry. You violated your own #1 rule. Always be careful.
So there we go. The tragic fall of Jeffrey Epstein. Somehow I can't shed a tear. I can't shed a tear. A liminal space of kinds, so to speak. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's what, yeah. There's your connection to Iran-Contra, a little bit of the connection to Israel, though that's one I'm still trying to wrap my mind around. The picture that I got painted, though, in the Iran-Contra affair, and remember, this is the 80s, right, is that Israel and the United States, hand and glove, right? A lot of people will portray this as a, you know, that somehow this is representative of the United States acting on Israel's behalf, but I think you're missing a lot if you don't recognize Israel as the United States outpost in the Middle East, in a area which, especially at the time, was just crucial for the resource of the day. That, you know, what the United States needed more than anything, access to oil, and there you go. You've got a forward base acting on the behest of the global hegemon in Israel, and, you know, staying protected, like I said, in that shadowy cloak of the military-industrial complex of the United States. So with that, chat, I gotta count up the votes, don't I? Let's take a look at this. Let's see what you voted for. Also, the other thing I need to do is maybe consolidate the chats. Chats, are you ready to get consolidated? We're gonna try to merge the streams, okay? This is a delicate operation. It may cause some space-time continuum disruption. If so, don't get worried. Just let it happen, I suppose. Anyway, that sounds dark. But this whole stream has been dark. We're talking about freaking Epstein, for fuck's sake. All right, so with that, chat, I'm gonna raid the shorts chat into the regular chat. You're welcome to hang out with us. You'll probably be I don't know. Here, look, you'll probably be carried over automatically. In case you're not, I'll give you the link. I'll post that link in the chat. Maybe even pin it for good measure. There we go, posted and pinned. And probably when I hit end stream, it'll just bring you into there. If you want to hang out with us, we're going to be talking about, I believe, oh wait, no, What If Alt Hist, his appearance on Tim Pool. So if you want to see a real mad lad, and I not say that not entirely figuratively, in Rudyard from What If Alt Hist, expounding upon his theories of life, the universe, and everything, and maybe talking to Norse gods on ayahuasca. You know, this is the kind of thing that Rudyard gets up to. If that's the kind of, sounds like the kind of rabbit hole you want to go down after this rabbit hole, then just hang on for dear life, because I'm about to rage. Oh my god, I almost hit the wrong one. Gotta end the short stream. There we go. And you will be rated into the wide stream, and your whole perspective on life will change. See you there. Yeah, redirect. All right. So hang on for incoming.